Call. Mr. Griffin. Ms. Cooper. Let the record reflect, 8 members are present. Mr. Burgard is not here at this time. There was an incident in Port Safford this morning. Mr. Turner will be running a little bit late, but he did say he would join us. Can you do Brad anything? Huh? Kim? Go ahead, on Anthony. Help us out here. Yeah.
Everybody stand for the prayer. We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for this parish's natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We also pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Anthony. Stu, would you lead us to the pledge, son?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon, everyone. We may try to rush through a few things today. We do have graduations tonight, and a few of us have to be out of here early, so please bear with us. Our first item this morning is going to be 7G. Motion override a veto of ordinance number 13-96, adopted May 9, 2013, an ordinance authorizing the parish president to negotiate and enter into a contract with Environmental Operators, LLC, who submitted a request for proposals for garbage and trash contract services, base proposal for the purpose of providing solid waste transportation and disposal of all solid waste for Plaquemines Parish. To submit for approval by the parish council, negotiated contract noted herein to execute after approved by the council the negotiated terms, the contract, and otherwise provide respect thereto. I'm going to offer and ask for a second. Second by Mr. Burris. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just got one question, maybe two questions. When those contracts went out for bid, this company was the lowest bid that we received?
Yes, sir. We actually had some other companies come in and offer some bids on some portions of the contract. I took the liberty of going out and looking at prevailing contracts in other parishes, and these bids came in as either equal or lower than other bids. I was told this morning our bids were all the same throughout the parish, which is not true. There's a cheaper rate, for instance, in Venice than Burris Ash, because you move transportation-wise. This is something that's actually been dragged on for quite some time. We've asked the administration to have this rectified 2 years ago, and we're still looking at it right now. And he's had ample time to have this done. And I would ask y'all to support me on this and get this out of the way.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Machine is open on the override. And it passes 8-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, we can. Okay, I'll try to run through. Okay, we have a proclamation this morning, if we can. It's a proclamation declaring June 8, 2013, Jeffrey Mervyn Buzzy Scarabin Senior Day in Plaquemines Parish. Ms. Cooper, you're offering? Buzzy Scarabin. She's offering. I'm going to ask for unanimous second. We have that. Okay, machine is open. And it passed unanimously, 8-0. Ms. Cooper, could you give us a little information, please?
Buzzy was the harbor master at Port Eads. Mr. Lowe? for over 25 years, and he was well-known in the parish, and especially on the lower end. Everybody liked Buzzy, you know. And his family have plans to spread his ashes at Port Eads, and I think it's on June, is it on June 8th? June 8th, they're gonna do that. So I thought it would be nice if we did this proclamation for them to have for when they spread his ashes at Port Eads. And he was a very well-liked man
Yes,
in
ma'am,
this
he was.
parish. And we all liked Buzzy and we respected him.
Thank you, Ms. Marlowe. We'll do a photo op. If the family would like to walk up, we could take a quick picture, please. Yeah, I'm sorry, let me read the proclamation. A proclamation declaring June 8, 2013 as Jeffrey Murphy Buzzy Scarabin SUNY Day in Plaquemines Parish. Whereas Jeffrey Scarabin was born in Burwood, Louisiana, was a lifelong resident of Venice and Buras, Louisiana, was the beloved husband of the late Joanne Raga Scarabin and father of Jeffrey Scarabin, Tammy S. Hufty, Janine S. Ducote, and Leslie Scarabin Rollo. And whereas a veteran of the United States Navy in the Vietnam War, serving on the USS Kearsarge, whereas he passed away on June 11, 2011, on June 8, 2013, the family of Jeffrey Scarabin will lay his ashes to rest in Port Eads at his wish. And whereas Buzzy, as everyone knew him, was a harbor master of Port Eads Marina for over 25 years and a fixture to the area's fishermen, accessible only by boat or seaplane, Port Eads had been a special place for Buzzy, his family, and blue water fishermen he met from all over. His brother Wayne, who also helped run the business, was killed in Hurricane Katrina, which heavily damaged the marina, trying to ride out the storm on a steel barge houseboat at Port Eads. Whereas Buzzy was a friend of recreational commercial fishermen and will always be a true legend of Port Eads, he was quite the character and no doubt one of a kind. Buzzy definitely brought humor, hospitality, loyalty, and made the place what it was. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Plaquemines Parish Council, represented by its duly authorized chairman, Byron Marinovich, and by concurrence of the parish president, Mr. Billy Nungasser, representing the parish government, that it hereby declares June 18, 2013 as Jeffrey Mervyn Buzzy Scarabin Senior Day.
Thank you.
Anybody have any comments that you wanted to make?
We accept this for the family, and thank you very, very much. It's more than what we expected, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
If y'all want to come through and take a little picture or something?
Take your tie off. Hey, District 4 is noted for casual. These are the people.
You want to try to run in through? Okay, we're going to move to item 7D, a presentation by Ms. Christina Peterson from UNO regarding an integrated information map system. I would ask any of y'all, if y'all do have presentations, we need to try to keep them as brief as possible because we are on a very, very tight schedule today. Is Ms. Peterson here? All right. You name and address for the record if you would, ma'am.
Thank you. Christina Peterson, 106 Sandalwood Drive, Gray, Louisiana. And I have with me Billy Gust from GCR. And he's right here. Okay. Several years back, the Greater New Orleans Foundation was very gracious in giving us a grant to do planning for citizens' engagement in planning in the coast of Louisiana, specifically in Plaquemines Parish. And this was because of the master plan that was coming out, state master plan, and then also the plan that Plaquemines has, which is such an incredibly good coastal plan. And in the time that we've worked with the coast in the different communities in Plaquemines, we realized that one of the things that was really needed was a system to be able to have information readily accessible and be able to integrate it together to be able to make reports, to be able to pull it together, to be able to understand what's going on in real time. Information became dated very quickly, as you remember, with the master plan and with other things coming down from the state, which made then reporting to the communities obsolete information, which doesn't work. So in that process, we worked to put an integrated information system together, which we have brochures. Do you want to just pass them? Okay. To the, okay, right here. GCR has the platform which allows many, many layers of information to be sorted of information so that a person can go on any computer without any software and be able to pull that information up at any time in any place and be able to then integrate those layers of information. So we have presented this to different nonprofits as far as a tool for the nonprofits to use as they're formulating proposals, grant proposals to be able to bring money into the area. We presented it to different council members to see its versatility as far as your use, and we've showed it to different people who have been related to work within the parish. All of them have said that it's extremely usable and versatile kind of tool. Because it's hard to pull out manuals at the last minute to try to find out information about drainage or whatever, or pipes or whatever it is. So this will give a tool that will be able to assess the information readily and accessible. And Billy, you can talk a little bit more about how it's layered.
Yeah, so this is, we've shown this tool to a couple of different council members to try to highlight the ability of your particular, of a particular jurisdiction and what's going on in your parish to quantify needs, benefits, in order to justify asks for certain types of projects, whether they be coastal restoration projects, drainage improvement, hurricane protection, all these different things that there's a variety of different informational sets throughout the public sector and private as well, that this will be able to bring in to create, not only to identify impacts to projects, to particular populations, and also demographics within that population in terms of low income, high income, and also in terms of housing impacts as well. Unfortunately today we were actually wanted to do a presentation with the gentleman who had the material got in a little bit of a fender bender on the way down here. So we hope to have the ability to come back to you and highlight the tool which some of you all have seen and for greater. But we'll defer on giving the presentation, till a later time if that's okay. And we do appreciate your time. I've provided a little handout for some of y'all, and some of y'all have already seen it, and we hope to get back in front of you soon.
Thank you very much for your time, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna move to 7E. Is Miss Jan Morgan here today? We have a presentation from Ms. Jan Morgan from the LSU Ag Center regarding the parish profile for 2013. Hello, Ms. Jan.
Good afternoon. I'm Jan Morgan with the LSU Ag Center, and our reports are in a folder. Y'all all have received those, and we're going to be very brief. I just want to thank you all so very, very much. We provide a lot of important services to the wonderful citizens of this great parish, and we couldn't do that without your support. And before I let Twyla and Melissa, my coworkers come, I'm also announcing my retirement. I'm going to retire July 1st. I'm going to still be involved with 4-H, July 1st. But we do have someone that is going to replace me, Heather Eggers, who works with UNO, and Dinah Maygarden with coastal restoration projects. Is going to be the new 4-H agent. So again, I just want to thank y'all for all your support for all of the years, and I'm going to leave before I start crying.
I'm going to miss Miss Jan.
PV, it must be nice to retire at 27, huh?
My name is Twyla Harrington. I'm with LSU Ag Center and the Louisiana Sea Grant Program. I've met most of you, I think. I'm the marine fisheries agent for Plaquemines, St. Bernard, and Orleans parishes. And I just kind of wanted to throw this on your radar. I know some of you have heard about it. Marla is pretty familiar with what's going on. This is the South Shore Direct Seafood.com website. It's a part of the Louisiana Direct Seafood website. And we've got a South Shore part to it now. And back in March, we had a dock day down in Venice, and it was kind of an introduction to the fishermen about what was going on and how to start direct marketing your own seafood. So the website is up and running, and this little brochure, I gave you guys a couple of them, will just kind of link you onto the website and show you how to use it and give you a little bit more information. If you know someone who's interested in signing up and being a fisherman and selling on the website, it's free of charge. They can go on there. It's a way to advertise their product. If you're interested in getting the news updates from them and finding out which boats are coming in where with more product, then you can also just click on the newsletter and sign up for the newsletter and get that information. And that's just one of the projects that Sea Grant's been working on right now in Plaquemines Parish. So if you guys have any questions, just let us know. I'm going to pass it on to Melissa here, and she is with the Sea Grant's legal department out of Baton Rouge, and she's going to talk to you guys about the homeowner's handbook that y'all have.
Hi, thanks for having us today. We received a grant from the Gulf of Mexico Alliance to publish the homeowner's handbook. I left a copy at each of your seats to look at. I also brought 75 additional copies that I'm going to leave in the back of the room. They're available free of charge to the public. We have about 12,000 copies in the office, and it really just goes over evacuation planning, what to have in your evacuation kit, emergency contact info, construction techniques, as well as renovation techniques that can really help your house withstand a storm, and just some information, legal information on how to be legally prepared, as well as what kind of insurance you might want to consider having. We really want to get these out to the public, so if you have a business place or somewhere where you want to put them out and distribute them, or if there's any kind of hurricane preparedness day, we were at the Plaquemines Seafood Festival handing them out. Please get in touch with us and let us know. And again, there's going to be 75 copies in the back that I hope y'all take and bring to family members and friends.
And I have a box at the LSU Ag Center office in Belle Chase, so you can also feel free to contact me, and I can get you that box or more from Melissa.
Thank you very much, ladies. And Ms. Jane, I would like to thank you very much for all your service. We've all appreciated what you've done. I know you did a lot for my daughter and many other children in this parish, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's go to, we got F, I'm sorry. Keep me in line, let's do it. We have a presentation by Mr. Tim Osborne with NOAA regarding hurricane season preparedness. Fall.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Osborne with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. I'd like to just run through, and I know graduation is coming up, so I'll be very, very brief. It's interesting to note that the Scarabin family should be proud to know that Buzzy was a public servant. He actually worked in part with NOAA, helping report the tides and water levels and weather conditions from Port Eads to us, so that we would actually put into that record. And we actually commend you and appreciate both him and his family and all the fine work that they did down there at Port Eads. And it was a very nice touch for you to recognize him that you did. The hurricane season will start in June 1. There was a press conference this about just 1 hour ago at NOAA headquarters. The forecast for this year's hurricane season is a 13 to 20 named storms for this hurricane season, which is very, very active. Named storms is either a tropical storm or a hurricane. There will be 7 to 11 that are being forecasted that will actually become hurricanes. That's category 1 to 5. And 3 to 6 of those are being forecasted to be severe or major hurricanes. A major hurricane is a category 3, 4, or 5. We do not forecast where they're going to go. You saw probably the earlier forecast from University of Colorado that they talked about percentages of, maybe it will go to the Gulf, maybe not, things like that. But in terms of this presentation, it is the one storm that we need to basically prepare for, and you've actually experienced 6 events in the last 8 years, and obviously you know that lesson very well. John Pennison, a good friend of mine, allowed me to use this as a very entry level to the presentation. John's building in Braithwaite is actually, I wanted to not show you how bad it got hit, we all know that, but more the fact that there are 3 unique characteristics about this structure that is very important for us to talk to you. First is his elevation. The elevation of John's building essentially is right at about sea level. So when we looked inside that building and we saw a storm surge high water level mark of about 13 to 14 feet, that actually matched what we saw in the Gulf of Mexico. So the elevation of the structures and their vulnerability to storm surge is one very important part. See the roof? The roof is right on the top there. You see that thin strip above it where you actually see the missing shingles. That is not from a bad roofing contractor, so John does not need to go after anybody or anybody's bond or insurance. That's actually storm waves. Storm waves are very important, and we need to talk about that. If you go to the next slide. And we'll get to storm waves in a minute. This is storm surge records that we've had for hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico from Apalachicola to the central Texas area for many, many, many decades. Could you press one more time? 1969, a Category 5 hit the northern Gulf and had a 24.5-foot storm surge. Does anyone remember that? Yes, he does. And in fact, that was Hurricane Camille that hit Texas, Mississippi. We actually had a NOAA plane in the storm that had to get out because of engine troubles and was measuring wind speeds at the time of over 200 miles an hour. Next, just hit one more time. All right, but here's a Category 3 in 2005, and it had a 26-foot storm surge. Do you remember that one? Yes, we do. We all experienced that. So, and this is a very important point. I'm not bringing up, this is not a Plaquemines problem. What I'm bringing up is the fact that the category of storm has nothing to do with the height of the storm surge, okay? Now, why am I saying that? Next, please. Here's one more. Here's 2008, a Category 2, 19-foot storm surge. Not picking on Plaquemines now. I'm picking more on the Lake Charles, Galveston area. That was Hurricane Ike. Hurricane Ike was a Category 2 making landfall in Galveston. What did it do for every coastal parish? Flooded every coastal parish, including the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. Storm surge is basically made of 3 things. Click one more. No, go back. Go back to the storm surge. No, go forward. Oh, it is? Okay. Your computer. Anyway, it's all right. Yeah, there. 3 things to make up storm surge. The tide. So when we get a big storm coming in through Cuba, what happens with our high tide? You start noticing it. The tides start going up. What happens with the tide? It doesn't go down. We'll start stacking tides. So if we start stacking tides about 2 to 3 feet, what happens with the storm surge? Next, the surge gets on top of the tide. So we have an 8-foot storm surge, but it's already on a 3 feet of tide that's been stacked up along our coast. Now we have an 11-foot storm tide. Lastly is the waves. This goes back to John's. That is not John's old office, but storm waves. This is the thing about trying to get boats and vessels and anything with an exposure to open water out of that water. Because why? The tide is going to raise it, surge is going to build on top of it, possibly ripping the moorings out with the winds, and then the waves are going to start moving it very quickly. I'm going to actually give you one quick science lesson. If you have a 10-foot water level out here, right here out in Breton Sound, how high can a wave be? And this is you have graduation tonight, so you got to actually have one science lesson. If it's a 10-foot Breton Sound out there, how high can the wave be? It can only be about 4 feet. 40% of the water depth can be the maximum wave. Okay, now what happened with Isaac? We threw another 10, let's say we just threw another 10 feet of surge on top of that. All of a sudden, Breton's now 20 feet deep. How high can the waves be then? 8 feet. 4 feet's going to knock you off your feet. 8 feet's going to take this place and just clear out. And that's why water is heavy, water perfectly transmits energy. If you start it off in Cuba and you send it this way, it's not going to stop until it hits something harder than it. And lastly about water is very, very dynamic. It can be influenced. This is Gustav, New Orleans. Gustav hit Homa, came over and hit me in Lafayette, and this is Gustav hitting the IHNC, the Inter Harbor Navigation area of New Orleans. And if you recall, Gustav also hit Baton Rouge. Next. And this is what Gustav and storm waves can do inside. And this is getting away from Plaquemines. This is the IHNC. And you can see what storm waves and storm surge can do. The ship almost made it across the IHNC, across the highway, and almost hit the interstate overpass on the way out. Wherever it was going, and fortunately that lower highway finally stopped it. Next. Okay, a couple things. As we get ready, you're going to have the hurricane season. National Hurricane Center has one of the best websites in the world. How many people know where to go find it? National Hurricane Center. All you got to do is type in NHC in Google or Bing, whatever you want, and more times than not, it's going to come with the National Hurricane Center. National Hurricane Center is your resource. You can get it on an iPhone, you can get it on your computer. It updates. With a storm, it's going to update 4 to 5 times a day with the forecast tracks of wherever that storm's going to be. And in fact, we're actually trying to experiment with going to a 7-day out forecast track, not just a 5-day. And on top of that, if you saw last year, you saw those little red blobs in the Gulf and the Atlantic saying, hey, there might be a disturbance forming there. We're institutionalizing it this year, and you're actually going to see more of it. Do not freak out, okay? Because I guarantee you it is likely you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to see 3 big red blobs out there, and maybe even like a tropical depression or a tropical storm, and it's going to take up all this graphic, and you're going to say the end of days is upon us. It's not. All it is alerting you to the fact that we're looking at these areas. We're going to track them very carefully, and if they become serious and look at making a run towards a land area, we're going to really go into hyperdrive to make sure that everyone's very prepared to get out of the way, and that's a very important part. After we have a hurricane, this is one of the things, the next slide, one of the things that we also do for the state of Louisiana and Plaquemines Parish. This is I'll leave the presentations with the council, but this is actually aerial photography. We flew starting day 1 after the storm of Plaquemines Parish, coastal Mississippi, and along the rim all the way to Port Fourchon, shooting aerial digital photography that came off the plane that day and got posted that night onto a website, so anybody with an internet browser and a computer could call up these photographs and start looking at their areas. It's a business. This is the Braithwaite area right here. You can see with the water flooding it. This is what we found with Katrina was really critical, that the public demand and the organizational demand with state, local emergency managers, parish councils is so high that we needed to get this photography up as quickly as possible. You as the council, you as the parish leadership, if you have critical areas that need to have aerial imagery immediately after these storm events, contact this through GOSEP, or you can just write to me and I'll go ahead and make sure that request gets to the right people. Next. This is, again, the aerial photography reflecting what this is. That aerial photography is geo-referenced. It'll bring in and help support your GIS. Next. All right, next, go on. We'll go on to something else here. All right, this is what's happening. We did not see storm surge hitting Plaquemines Parish. And the reason why is that we do not have very many hardened stations down here to actually see that storm surge event when it's actually coming at you. Next. This is one of the hardest hardened stations in Shell Beach, St. Bernard Parish that we've ever built. It can sustain a Category 4 hurricane and keep operating throughout the event itself. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers lost a lot of these type of smaller, weaker stations through southeast Louisiana, and they are now on an effort working with us to look at locations for new stations, and Plaquemines Parish is one of them. That's why I bring it to the council's attempt, because those stations like Shell Beach are recording storm surge during Isaac without any interruption, and it saw a 12-foot storm surge up in Shell Beach, St. Bernard. That, for a Category 1, is a big number. That's why I wanted to show you that Cat 1s don't mean anything when it comes to the storm surge. Next. And I'll let, so what we are asking the council and the leadership to do at Plaquemines Parish is to work with us. We have another meeting that I'll send you the dates on the 30th of next week to meet with the Corps of Engineers. Next, please. Go ahead, keep going. One more, one more, one more, one more. This map is what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is looking to propose in terms of new hardened stations for southeast Louisiana, and you can see there's a number in Plaquemines Parish. Are they good locations? I think in general it's a good start, but unless you as the council and the parish leadership look at it and say, yeah, that makes sense or that doesn't make sense, then we really haven't done our job to include you to make sure that these new stations are going in the right place to help protect you and the population of Plaquemines Parish from future storm surge. Remember, every time and every day, just like Buzzy was helping us down at Port Eads, that we record tides and water levels and weather conditions, that daily record goes into the storm surge models to improve our ability to forecast what any storm is going to do to this area. Lastly, I want to also point out something that you know very well. We are low in elevations. Plaquemines Parish has lived it, will continue to live it. Next, please. It all goes all the way over to Cameron Parish. Next slide. There you go. And it's going to continue because next, our sea level rise in Louisiana is the highest in the United States. Next. Go ahead. And this is the reason. One of the reasons is we have worldwide sea level rise and we also have subsidence. We built on a delta. The delta is subsiding. We're not replenishing it. Those elevations are moving down. Next. And that's why the storm surge from a Category 1 hurricane caused this kind of event. Next. So in summary, Plaquemines has the opportunity to support additional hardened surge monitoring stations. Our response imagery and surveying, as we're working with John Pennis and others to help open you guys up as fast as possible, is available. And we're going to be constantly talking to you whenever there's a storm out there in the Gulf. And improving the storm surge models with additional stations is going to be something we think is very, very helpful. Again, last point, 13 to 20 hurricanes or tropical storms being forecast for this year. 7 to 11 of them are going to be named hurricanes. 3 to 6 are going to be major hurricanes. That's the forecast. But the one storm event is the one that you need to worry about, and your preparedness right now is very, very important. And I'd like to thank you and appreciate your help and the cooperation we've had in the past years to come as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
What's his name?
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Let's do money. Ms. Lauren. Okay, do we have a status report by the parish president? It's not present. Thank you, sir. Do we have any bids and advertisements? Beer and liquor license, Mr. Griffin? Mr. Hinckley?
None.
None. Anthony, no beer and liquor license, sir? Mr. Edgecombe? And Ms. Cooper? Mr. Burkhart? No beer and liquor license, sir? Okay. This is building permits. I'm sorry, not right here today. They've been keeping me up here tonight. Okay, those are those. Give me yours. Let's do these real quick. I'm gonna get them out the way. Okay, we're gonna go, these are construction, 4A1, Swift Energy Operating LLC, Lake Washington Field, wheel wash, install power clusters and shell pad, drill the Cockrell Moran VVVC prospects, install keyway and wellhead protector. Hallis Oil and Gas LLC, Black Bay Field, install power clusters, drill at State Lease 195 QQSWD well number 006 and install wellhead protector. 4A3, Hallis Oil and Gas Company LLC, Black Bay Field, install power clusters, barge mooring, drill estate lease 195 QQ well number 007, install wellhead protector. 4A5, Apache Corporation, Main Pass 69, Field Block 67, 65, 68, 83, and 81. Plug and abandon 5 wells and remove all other structures. 4A6 LLG Exploration Company LLC, East Black Bayfield. Install power clusters, drill estate lease 195 QQ lock number 1, and install wellhead protector. Eustace Engineering, Tiger Pass area, drill 2 saw borings. And with that, I'll offer this to be 4A1, 4A2, 4A3, 4A5, 4A6, and 4A7. I'm offering Globo. Ask for a second. Second by Dr. Gui. We have any comment or question about these? I yanked 4. Any other comment or question?
I'm good, thank you.
Machine is open on these items. Mr. Beers? Anthony? That's okay, baby. And these permits are granted. 4A4 will be deferred at this time. I don't have an 8. This is just a map change. What? Yeah, but this is just a public comment prepared or what? So this is actually a permit? Okay, we go to 6A8, ZMP 2013-2, map change, United Bulk Terminals, 15,001, Highway 15, Devant, Louisiana, from A2 to mobile home. It shows a board recommendation. The board held a public hearing on April 25th, 2013, and there were no objections to this matter at the public hearing. The board recommends by resolution 713 dated February 20th to approve this application. Mr. Griffin, you're going to be offering this item? Would you like to? Yes, sir. We'll move to 4B, a resolution approving the issuance of a special permit to Michael Villar for the placement of a trailer on residence on property located in FP floodplain zoning district at 350 East Ravenna Road, Belchase, all in accordance with application number 2013-3875, dated May the 10th, 2013. Mr. Vieras? I'll second. Mr. Vieras?
It's a gentleman that's in a floodplain, he needs a permit from the parish to put a mobile home.
Okay, any comment or question? Hearing none, the machine is open on 4B. And the resolution passes 9-0. 4C, a resolution approving the issuance of a special permit to Campania Properties for the installation of a fireworks stand renewal on property located in C2 General Commercial Zoning District at 7836A Highway 23, Belchase, all in accordance with application number 2013-3897, dated May 16, 2013. Mr. Burris? And I'll second. Wait. It's got 3 years in it. I'm sorry. Mr. Lapine, you offering?
Off is red.
Anthony's gonna second. Mr. Lapine?
Just a fireworks stand renewal, thank you.
Any problems, any questions, any comments?
Nope.
Any comment or question from the audience? Hearing none, the machine's open on 4C. And it's passed 8-0. Ms. Marla, you had asked for something, an item to move to. You asked me about WW? An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the overlay Venice Marina Road project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ms. Cooper, your offering?
I'll offer a sub, and then I'll have to do changes on that.
You offering with changes? I'll second Anthony changes. What's the changes? Ms. Moore, I believe our changes, if you correct me, in section 2, I believe our changes, is that the administration is hereby directed to withhold payment of the wearing course bid item to the contractor, which is Barrier Construction, until the project is completed. The contractor provides a final survey to finish roadway elevations as per construction contract. The design engineer, Burt Klein Peter, provides a memorandum comparing the design elevations with the finished elevations. Resident inspector, which is All South, confirms and certifies all actual project quantities, and the parish council authorizes release of payment for the wearing course bid item. Is that correct, ma'am?
That's correct. We're gonna insert that as section 2, and the, section 2 that's on there now, we're gonna change that to read section 3. And where, I'm gonna change the figure, I need 300,000, but we have another council member that needs money out of that fund too. So I'm going to drop that figure, and every spot that it says 300,000, put that down to 254,000.
254, Ms. Marlowe?
254,000.
Thank you.
And, in the 2 spots where it says, I think it's in the first section, and the preamble and the section 1 where it says general fund, unreserved, undesignated fund, change that to sewer fund in 2 places. And I just want to say that it's estimated at a 254,000 now because of the funding, that I'm going to go ahead and, lower it down. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not going to come back for, it won't be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but if it goes a little bit closer to the 300,000, I may have to come back.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate that, because,
Okay.
we are under budget constraints. And, Ms. Myers, this is not a problem? I'm a second your, proposal, Ms. Marlowe. Ms. Myers, not a problem with this?
Now, the current fund balance in the designation for sewer is $538,022. This will decrease that fund balance and to about probably a couple $100,000 that will be available for the council. But this is not including any rollover money. This is the current fund balance in that designation for sewer.
Thank you, Ms. Myers.
You're welcome.
Any other comment or question about this? Hearing none, the machine's open on 6WW. And it passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we move to 600?
Let's see what you got.
A
right
piggyback from Ms. Marler's.
We got 600, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the dredging, Suzie Bayou, and Deer Range Canal project, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Mr. Turner, you're offering, and you have some numbers for us, please, sir?
I do offer it in the blank with 250,000. Ms. Cooper graciously reduced her amount, and so, and that would be from general fund designated for sewer. So
And
on
Mr.
line
Turner,
4,
you
we
explained
offer,
to me earlier that this is necessary because of shrimp season. A lot of these guys are having some problems getting to work, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay.
And once we get a second, I'll explain it. But on line
I'll
4,
second.
I'm
I'll
offering with
second.
the change, and the change is gonna be on line 4, filling in the blank with 250,000, and on line 10, 250,000, and on line 5, instead of unreserved, undesignated, it's gonna be general fund designated for sewer on line 5 and on line 11.
Do we have any comment or question on this one?
I would just like to see what,
Second. Right.
I'm seconding with the changes, Mr. Turner.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comment or question? Hearing none, the machine's open.
Let me,
I'm sorry.
yeah, let me go first, and then we'll allow Mr. Escombe to respond. The location of this is in Lake Hermitage. You have Suzie Bayou and Deer Range Canal, and the main one is Deer Range Canal. That's the main artery that they use to get out, to go out to the Gulf. Suzie Bayou is the first road in en route, as you go into the back in Lake Hermitage, that first canal is Suzie Bayou. We have some shrimpers there. At the next canal on the right, you have shrimpers there. But they all feed into Deer Range Canal that goes around and leads them out to the Gulf. And you have a lot of debris from Hurricane Isaac. We're hoping that is going to be covered with a PW. In talking to Ms. Myers, she graciously made a call to Jens Nielsen while we were in the back, and he's saying there's about a 50-50 chance of it being covered. There are no guarantees there, but the bottom line, the work still needs to be done. And so, and if we try to delay it and wait until rollover, these guys, they're having a problem getting to work, and we're in the middle of May season as far as shrimping, and it's impacting them. So that's why I'm asking that we move forward on it. And I know Mr. Edgecombe had a concern about the work in Suzie Bayou as far as the bulkhead because of the size and the depth, that if it's not done properly, that we can potentially cause more damage by it caving in. But at a minimum, right, because I'm not asking for the full amount, we might only be able to do Deer Range. And whatever engineering is done, and our engineering department is going to absorb that expense and look at it. And that's all I have.
Right, no, sir, I'm in full support of Deer Range. I just have concern with the two bayous that come off of it. Deer Range needs to be dredged out, but as far as the smaller ones, I would suggest that we look into that a little bit further.
And Mr. Turner, that's not a problem, is it, sir?
No, not at this time. We mainly need to get the main artery open so they can
Sounds
get
good.
out.
Any other comment or question? Machine is open on 600.
And thank you, Ms. Cooper,
The ordinance
for
passes
helping with the
9-0.
funding.
Yeah, we can. Move to item 6M, an ordinance to repeal ordinance number 13-6, creating a policy wherein all future cost of living increases shall apply to all Plaquemines Parish government employees, including both classified and unclassified, and otherwise with provide respect thereto. Dr. Gouy?
I'll offer.
I'm going to second. Dr. Gouy?
Back in January 10th of this year, we approved an ordinance that resulted in cost of living increases for government employees, both classified and unclassified. After further analysis by the Finance Department, we were made aware that the increases would result in $700,000 the first year, and that over a period of 6 years, it would be up to $7.1 million.
Per
And-
year, sir?
Total. I'm sure that the council members, none of us were aware of that type of financial burden that we would be placing on future governments. And so on April 15th, I sent out an email with a graph that was provided me by Finance that actually showed the increases per year totaling
What's your number?
over a period of 6 years, 5
Can you do it
years,
today?
was $7.1 million. So with that,
Catch Lori
I have
before she leaves.
Ms. Lori Meyer here,
Find it for me if you
our
would.
Finance Director, to answer any questions, maybe further explain. And I also know that our legal department worked with you on this in regards to the ordinance and the repeal of the ordinance. So Mr. Palazzo and Ms. Meyer, but Ms. Meyer, if you go first, please.
Sure. Again, I'm going to tell you there were some assumptions that went into these calculations. I was assuming that the cost of living would be a 3%, which has basically been the average that was given to the unclassified on an annual basis, and that it would be given in January of each year. This was for all classified positions. Whether they were filled or vacant wasn't taken into consideration. It was just all of the positions. Basically, what happens for us in calculating this is if a cost of living is given to the classified employees, that will be on top of their merit. Because based on the civil service rules, and I've discussed this with Mr. Paradellis, the merit increase is what needs to be addressed first. And a cost of living can come after the merit is addressed because it's a merit-based system. So if a cost of living is approved, that will be on top of a merit increase. So if the unclassified are approved for a 3% cost of living, that will be an additional 3% that will go to the classified on top of their merit increase, if all employees are included, as this ordinance directs. Is that clear? And the average cost is about $700,000 additional dollars per year.
But also on that 700,000, incrementally, it does increase
Yes,
each
if you
year,
do,
right?
oh yes, it goes from a minimum of 638,000 to a maximum of 890-something thousand. So it will continually increase exponentially as the years go on.
That's correct.
Yes.
And that 896,000, that's for the year 2018.
That's correct.
So if the numbers run it the way they're running, it would be over $1 million, well, we over 900,000 the next year, and then $1
Right,
million
the
in
next-
addition to what we already are budgeting for salaries.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Over 5 years, you'll be looking at another $3.8 million.
Any other comment or question about this matter, Mr. Turner?
Mr. Chairman, when Mr. Turner is finished, I'll go.
Ms. Myers, what's the current cost of funding the classified and over 5 years? At what point, the 1 million or the 700,000, the 1 million that we're talking about, at what point will the rate, at the rate we're going, only giving it to the classified eclipse that? At what point? Because at some point, right, it will. We're constantly increasing it, and so at some point it's going to eclipse it. At what point would that be?
I'm not quite sure I follow the question there, Mr. Turner. Can you repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. If we're concerned about $1 million, right, increasing the cost by $1 million.
Per year, right?
Right, $1
Okay.
million per year.
Mhm.
At what point will the cost, what time will the rate that we're giving the 3% raise, cost of living raise to the classified eclipse that? Because at some point, the unclassified eclipse that. At some point, it will. Okay, if you can't answer, no problem.
No,
We'd have
it's
to
just
figure it
that,
out.
it's just
I
that
understand.
I'm not understanding, because right now, as it stands without this ordinance being in place, the unclassified usually get a 3% cost of living at the beginning of each year. And no merit. No, they're only.
No, I understand.
Right.
And here's another issue. I think we're confusing the two. And even though you're mentioning the two, you're mentioning the merit, which I think has nothing to do with what we're asking for, because we're asking about funding the unclassified. This is strictly a cost of living. I'm sorry. This is strictly a cost of living. So when we add the merit, then we muddy the water. The issue is, well, I'm hearing it all goes together, but let's talk about that. You also said, Ms. Myers, that, and here's where it got a little muddy, in that when you started talking about the merit, in that we have to first take care of the merit, right? Well, that's the way it is today. By law, we have to first take care of the merit.
Agreed.
But the way it's presented, the way it comes across, regardless of intention, but the way it comes across is though this would be something new. We have to take care of this first. That is done automatically.
No, the intention was to make sure that the council understood they couldn't opt to do a cost of living instead of a merit. It's that the merit takes precedence over the cost of living. That's
Well,
what that was
But,
for.
okay, and if that was the intention, fine. But that was never, even when it was initially offered, it was never offered as a replacement, because again, I even presented it as two separate issues, which they are. And civil service dictates the raise, the merit raise, or the performance raise, if we want to look at it that way. For the unclassified, the council gets to weigh in as to whether or not we would approve a performance raise or a merit raise for them. we have that option. But my issue is, when we give a cost of living raise, that's what we're talking about. We don't even need to discuss merit. It's two separate issues. Okay, so cost of living. If we can't afford, if it's an affordability issue, if we can't afford it for all, then at the current rate we're giving it, then the answer to that is reduce the rate. If we're going to give it, because it's a cost of living, it needs to go to everybody, unless we are setting ourselves up for a lawsuit, a discrimination suit, because we're singling out a specific class to give a raise to. And then if someone wants to make a case, the class that you're singling out is the highest paid class. So if you take that tractor driver, that janitor, and say that this government gave a cost of living raise to a select group, which it is, and not to us, I think they have a valid case.
Okay, I cannot speak to the legal issues of whether or not, so that
But
would
being
be,
that
I'm
you're
giving you
finance,
numbers, and
but let's
so.
talk finance just a minute longer. From the financial standpoint, if we can't afford it at 3%, then maybe it should be 2.5%, or maybe it should be 1%. But if we're going to give it, the issue is we give a cost of living to everybody. Now, if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. Don't say what you're not saying, but we're saying if we rescind this, we're saying that we can afford to give it to some and not to all. If we're going to give it to all. If we can't afford it, fine. If the budget can't support it, fine. We understand that. If the budget can't support a merit raise, we can't give it. So this is nothing new. It's just that if you're going to give it, we give it based on what we are required to do by law, or really what we are required to do by law. That's the bottom line. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Griffin, you had something for us, sir?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to echo something that Mr. Turner said in reference to, we can't give it 3%, maybe consider doing maybe 1%, 1.5%. Now, I realize, when we did this, last year, we all had good intentions on giving the 3% cost of living raise to our classified and unclassified employees. But at the same token, the more I sit and I listen, as the old folks said, we put the cart before the horse. We should have did our homework before we even made this proposal. Because when this proposal was done, parish employees were looking forward to that raise. So we gave them false hope in a sense. But the issue that I have too also that, you have some government agencies in this parish can submit a request for $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 raise for an individual, and we grant it. So we need to look at what we're doing. Because you're talking about discrimination lawsuit, maybe somebody in that office might want to file a discrimination lawsuit, and we give somebody a $6,000, $8,000 raise. So we need to be very careful in what we do and how we do, because we're making mistakes. So maybe you need to go back and see what's feasible to give the across-the-board raise to everybody, whether it's classified, unclassified people. Is it 1%, 1.5%, 2%? But we need to do something. There's no such thing we can't do nothing.
Oh, no, we can do, that's why I point out what I use in these calculations is 3%, which has been the average. What we do every year for the budget is see what funding we have and try and work within those revenues, and that's something we would have to address. If we could not afford any cost of living, we would not include one when we present it to you. But if the council chooses, to address that issue or to give one greater than what was proposed, that's entirely up to the council. I just think that, pardon? Oh, somebody asked a question, I'm sorry. My only concern is that everybody understands, and Mr. Turner, I understand what your point is, I really do. My concern is just the numbers to make sure everybody understands where they're coming from, and that if we pass this, the unclassified employees will not be able to receive any cost of living increase unless the classified receive it as well. So we will not be able to include any of the unclassified employees with the automatic 3% increase like we usually do in the budget. And
Wait, say that
most
part
of
again?
those.
I'm sorry, say that part again?
So what the effect this will have is that if there is not sufficient budget money to give everybody in the parish a cost of living raise, we still will not be able to give the unclassified a cost of living raise like they're used to receiving at the beginning of the year, because we can't give it to everyone. They won't receive it either. And they're used to receiving a 3% cost of living raise every January. So it will be all or none. I just want to make sure we're all aware of what's good, what effect this is going to have.
Right. But
So-
that's what the legislation was, the all or none. So,
Just
we're
making
clear
sure
on
we're
that.
clear on that everybody understands what the effect of this will be. Unless, of course, the council chooses to implement a merit-based system for, their employees, or the court system and chooses to do that, then, again, that's a different matter.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Mr. Beers?
Which brings me to the point that I had, and it's the point that you just made, is that the unclassified employees, if the legislation stands as it was adopted, then the unclassified employees will get nothing. But at the same time, the classified employees will get their merit increase. Is that not correct?
Budget permitting,
Okay.
the classified will receive their merit, if we can fit that in,
But which comes first?
merit. And if budget permits, on top of that merit, they will give cost of living if it permits, but that will be to everyone.
And isn't that the way it is today, that if budget permits after the merit raise, that we give a cost of living raise? Isn't that the way it is today?
If you're speaking of classified employees, yes, sir.
No, unclassified today.
Unclassified
well,
don't
hang on.
have a merit-based,
No. Here's the question. You didn't-
award.
That's not what I asked. Let me do it again. Today, unclassified receive a cost of living raise only after we budget the merit raise for the classified.
I can't say that that's correct. I say that we budgeted all together. In our mind, administration's mind, we bundle the merit and the unclassified increase as an annual increase. When we calculate the figures,
No,
that's how we look at it.
Well, let me ask it again, because you said it earlier, and so I'm going to do what you do, and I'm going to bring it out again. And that is, even today, a merit and a cost of living raise cannot be given to the unclassified, even though it's given today, but it cannot be given unless the merit is already taken care of.
Unclassified have no bearing on the merit, giving of the merit. The unclassified are not tied. The classified, yes, are tied to whether they have to receive their merit first. But the unclassified do not have any merit consideration currently.
We're not talking about the merit. We're talking cost of living. I said the same thing you said. I don't know if it's
Well,
sounding
we
different
talk
in your
different
head.
languages, I guess,
If
that's
it's
all.
sounding different when it's coming from you, but I've said the same thing that you've said earlier, and that is the first merit has to be taken care of before we give any additional raises. Before we give cost of living raise, we cannot give a cost of living raise even to the unclassified today if we did not have enough money in the budget to take care of the merit first. Is that a true statement?
I do not think it is. I think you could give an unclassified cost of living raise regardless of the merit being based. The restriction on giving merit first is simply because of a regulation in the civil service rules. Civil service rules, which applies to classified employees, says merit has to be addressed first. The unclassified don't have that rule to address their merit or cost of living increase.
So are you now saying, because that's not what I picked up on earlier, you're now saying that we can give a cost of living raise to the unclassified even though we don't have enough money to cover merit raise in the budget? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying I would not have.
Not whether we would or not, I want to, can we?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's any legal restriction that says you can't give a 1% cost of living raise to the unclassified, but you can't afford $1 million for the merit
Yep.
increase.
Simple question.
I think I just gave the answer. Yes,
no,
I think you can.
Well, let me make sure I'm understanding it then. A merit raise if we don't have enough for a merit raise, can we still give a cost of living raise to the unclassified?
I believe you can.
Okay. I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Anyone else?
Arthur Henry from Bell Chase. This is to repeal the ordinance, but I'm gonna talk about the ordinance for a while. Mr. Turner did this ordinance in January, but it was on there for about, almost a month. So, to me, the administration dropped the ball, or finance dropped the ball, because those statistics should have been done, it should have been pointed out way before this thing passed. Now we're going, after the ordinance passed, all of a sudden, it's costing too much. You had a lot of time to do this, and you can't say you didn't, because you did. It laid over for a long time, if anybody remember this ordinance. I remember it very clearly. It laid over for a long time. But my point is, if this is repealed, do we revert back to the original ordinance that's in place, that would be in place?
The ordinance today still stands. Yes. To answer your question, yes.
Well, that means the unclassified gets a raise, because it reverts back to the
No,
unclassified.
wait. Maybe I didn't understand. You're saying if we denied this today, right?
Right.
If we denied this, then the ordinance that's currently on the book is that everybody gets a raise. If you're going to give one, you're going to give it to all if you're going to give it.
Right.
So if we vote no on this,
That means only unclassified gets a raise, because it reverts
No.
back to the original
No.
ordinance,
No.
don't it? Why wouldn't it?
the ordinance on the table today,
Right.
if we vote against it, if we vote against this, then the ordinance that we early
Still
stands.
stands.
Right, then, which means that ordinance is that everybody, if we're going to give one, we give it to
Right.
all.
But if it fails,
If this fails, then we go back to, in my opinion, discriminating.
that unclassified get the raise and the classified get nothing.
You are correct.
And that's exactly what I'm standing up there saying. And you got 8 members of the council here. Hey, you guys voted for this, you know what I'm saying? You gotta look at all your constituents in the face and say, you know, I voted for you guys to get a raise, now I'm taking it away from you. Man, these people work hard, man. They really work hard. Don't do it to them. Don't do it to them. We can find the money somewhere. The money could be found. The money could be found. And like I said in the beginning, this should have been taken care of way early when this ordinance first came up for an adoption. But nobody wanted to do the homework or the study on it. But then it passed. Hey, don't let the people who work for the parish say, oh, I'm gonna get a raise, I'm gonna get a raise. But, you know, all 9 of you got constituents here. Hey, these guys not making a whole lot of money. I would hate to see these guys, man, you be disappointed. 3% not a whole lot of money anyhow, but it's something. Let's keep this where everybody gets something. We can find the money somewhere. We can find the money.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Well, Mr. Henry, I just want to point out that our services are certainly available to anybody who needs numbers. All they have to do is ask my office, and we'll be glad to provide them, okay? This wasn't my legislation, so I didn't provide anything on it, but we certainly would be glad to provide anything we're asked for. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that the classified merit will still be in place. You understand what I'm saying? That even if this ordinance is not left in place, the merit will still be there for the classified, which is their performance evaluation raise. So I just want to make sure you understand that it will not take away their merit by any means. I want to make sure that's clear.
This is what I'm saying. When this came up, well, of course, sometimes finance be here, sometimes finance don't. But I specifically know when Mr. Marinovich asked how much this is going to cost. Never got an answer, baby. Now, you could go back and check on that. I know, because I was here. I know. But you know what? But now all of a sudden, we can't afford it. Hey, don't blame that on You were always there. Wasn't there at that particular time.
Mr. Marinovich, my only concern with the whole issue here is the equality of it all. You know, when you look at 3% of a person on the upper end of the ladder, you know, they get 3% of their current salary. When you say 3% to the person that on the lower part of the scale, it's 3% of their base pay.
We've changed that, Ms. Audrey.
It has changed?
With the last legislation that we passed, you are correct, that's the way it was.
Okay.
But we changed it, so now the merit is an even 3%. But you are correct, that's the way it was, but we did change that.
And that was a recent change, Ms. Audrey, so.
Okay, good. Well, the second part of it is that, okay, if we can't afford it, I agree with Councilman Turner, well, then we should go back and reconsider it for every employee. But the bottom line is, it still needs to be a balance, a better balance than what we are doing now. And my problem is, I don't care if it's $300 million. If we can afford to pay our employees, I think we should do it. It's not one council meeting that I don't come to. If you look at the port, we're creating jobs for brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, for everybody in the world. You know, every council meeting, we are creating jobs. And I'm not talking about lower paying jobs on a higher bracket. So, I mean, if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. But if we can, let's do it.
I'm just giving you the numbers, Ms. Audrey. That's all I'm doing. I don't make the decisions about what the percentage is and how it's
So,
applied.
Audrey, I think what we're trying to prevent is to wind up in the same shape as the Postal Service, where we just automatically, arbitrarily give out raises to everyone that we can't afford. As we obviously know, I will mention to you that we are under some severe budget constraints right now, so to blindly give out raises that we may or may not be able to afford, I think is foolish.
And Mr. Marinovich, you're correct, but when we're giving it just to a class, then we're arbitrarily giving it to that class. And that's that's the case I'm making. It needs to be for everybody and not arbitrarily. So somebody has decided we're going to give it to the unclassified because they don't get a merit.
Mr. Rousseau, you have name and address, please.
Benny Rousseau, 1012 Epsilon Street. I want to make sure I heard Ms. Myers correctly about if we want figures, we can call your office and you will provide them?
You can call administration, and they will give me a directive to provide you those figures.
I just want to clear it up because
When I
getting
say
public documents out of this
I mean
administration.
administration, okay?
Okay, well, I'm glad you changed your position. I want to make it clear.
In my head, the position was straight. When I say us, I mean administration,
Mr.
okay?
Rousseau, I believe you got your answer on that one.
Yes, and I have some more a little later.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, Warren Lawrence in Myrtle Grove. I just have to make one comment on this. You know, they call it a cost of living, and yet you're throwing out things and it's not based on what the cost of living is. It seems like it would be something with consumer index or something, rather than ball off on a 3%, 2%, 1%, because the cost of a loaf of bread or the cost of a gallon of gasoline or whatever, it doesn't matter if you're parish president or you're a laborer. That cost of living is the same for everyone. And to base the cost of living on a percentage of a salary does not give the same fair approach to both. I would encourage y'all to look at a cost of living bonus, and it doesn't attach to the salary at all. And everybody, if you have the money in the pot, then divide it, and everybody gets the same bonus for the cost of living for that previous year. Their bread, their lunch, everything went up the same. And I guess my trip from Cuba just now maybe a little communist, but I mean, I just had to express that I just feel is that whenever you're doing it across the board, 3% on 100,000 is a lot different than 3% on somebody making 20,000. And I think it should be linked to some formula as far as the consumer index or something, because that's where your cost of living went up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Anyone else?
Arthur Henry said a lot of things, but one thing he said that I thought was really important is that whenever the council is dealing with anything with finance, especially of this nature where it involves people's livelihood, seems like there should have been a meeting of the mind with finance and its parish government to pass something and then come back a year later and saying we didn't look at it finance, it means that there's a disconnect somewhere in government. And I think if I was a parish employee, you know, I would feel sad to say that we have a council and administration who can't get together and they're playing with our livelihoods. So I just hope in the future that you look at how you make decisions on people's lives. This thing should have been held off until everything is worked out, rather than come back later. So obviously there was a disconnect somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to that?
Please do.
I don't think it should have been held off, and I don't think there was a disconnect because the legislation was clear in that it would be, if you give one, if you're going to give it, you give it to all. That's clear. The amount can be determined later. The percentage can be determined later, but we didn't need to wait until the percentage was determined because it might be like Mr. Lawrence would say, it all depends on what you link it to. But the bottom line, the issue is that if you're going to give it to one, you give it to all. That's clear. We don't need clarification on that. The question is, do we agree that we should give it to all? There's nothing else to work out. You know, and to say we don't have the money, no problem, then you don't give it. That's not an issue. The money is not an issue. The issue is whether or not we're going to continue to discriminate, whether or not we're going to give it to, if we're going to give it, we're going to give it to all. That's a yes or no. Either if we're going to give it, we give it to all. That's
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Turner. Dr. Gu, you ready to call a question on this one, sir?
I think everyone's said what they had to say. Let's vote.
Machine's open. And the ordinance passes 6-3. Where is? We're going to move to item 6AAA, an ordinance approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between Plaquemines Parish government and the Plaquemines Parish Sheriff's Office for assistance with enforcement of parish occupational license ordinances and any other parish ordinances mutually agreed upon by both parties, authorizing parish presidents to enter into and execute said agreement and otherwise provide respect thereto. Ms. Cooper, your offering, ma'am? Ms. Cooper?
I'll offer.
I'm going to second. Ms. Cooper, I believe we are doing this as something that we have in place already, and we're just going to continue this.
Yes, we're already doing this, we're doing this for an employee that is already a sheriff's officer that's already working with our sales tax office, and Mr. Terry Serkovich is here to answer any questions. If you all, this isn't a new position, it's a position that's been filled.
Mr. Gilbert's here in his position right now,
It's
am I correct?
Mr. Gilbert, yeah, Mr.
And
Butch
I'm
Gilbert.
quite well aware, we had some conversation with Mr. Gilbert already, and he explained to me he's been bringing in good bit of money of delinquent taxes and bringing a lot of people into the fold that weren't paying their taxes originally and all, and I feel it's something that we can go ahead and go with.
Right, and I think the agreement was when the police officer came to work to help Plaquemines Parish government, we were supposed to pay his salary.
Okay.
And something happened where that didn't get set, so now the present sheriff is coming, forward to go ahead and do that. And we have the agreement. I think y'all got the
Yes, ma'am, it's attached.
contract and email. So if y'all have any questions, Mr. Serkovich is here to answer them.
Do we have any questions?
I'd like for Mr. Serkovich to give us his take on what's presented.
Good afternoon. This is a position where we use a part-time deputy. His average salary a year will be approximately $18,000. From the years 2009 to 2013, as far as 13, that would be up to April 30th of 2013. We've collected an average of $725,000 from occupational license. And in the years for collection where we went after delinquent businesses that failed to get it, there was an average of approximately $25,000 a year collected concerning penalties for those businesses. So Mr. Gilbert's payroll, or anybody who would take Mr. Gilbert's place, just in penalties, that would pay his annual salary. He gets no benefits as far as insurance or anything, so that's not a consideration, because he's retired and he's already in a health insurance thing with the Sheriff's Association. So the only thing you're paying is
an hourly figure for him to go out there and collect delinquent occupational license.
Is that not a service that the Sheriff Department currently provides and is responsible for providing?
No, that's not a service we're responsible for providing. Out of this money, the sheriff's office only gets 15%. The other, I believe the other 85% goes to the parish general fund.
Regardless of where it goes, but isn't that a duty of the Sheriff Department?
When you say it's a duty of the sheriff's department, usually code enforcement is a duty of the parish government, depending on the code, obviously. If it's a code where it becomes a criminal penalty, then any deputy on the street can go out and enforce a code like that. If this has a criminal penalty to it, that I haven't researched that ordinance to see if it's a criminal penalty or it's just civil.
Sales tax, that's not a criminal penalty. I mean, you know,
Well, then it's
you collect for us. I guess what I'm getting at is, are we asking you to do something that's not a part of your responsibility anyway?
Mr. Jacob, let me just see if I can clarify, so being all my years in law enforcement. Mr. Attorney, in reference to that, if there's a criminal violation taking place in a nightclub or any establishment, and the deputy's on the scene, he has the right to act. But in this case, this is normally done by tobacco and firearm people commissioned by the state. And this is not the sheriff's responsibility to go out and collect taxes that the government is responsible for doing. The sheriff's department is only providing security reasons for our people to actually go out and do their job to make sure that there's no harm they get in their way, and at the same time provide the visibility of a uniformed person present at this time.
I thought the Sheriff Department collected taxes for the parish.
The taxes that people are willing to remit. I did have some conversation with Mr. Gilbert, and each year he's collecting in excess of at least $80,000 a year above and beyond what we normally collect. The businessmen, which we have quite a few of us sitting at the table and in the audience, most of us pay our taxes on time and do what we're supposed to do. There are quite a few flying under the radar, and that's the ones Butch has been going after. And I think this is something that we need to get done.
And to answer your question, we don't collect all the taxes of the parish. We have nothing to do with sales tax.
That's Keith's
Y'all have your
job.
own department for that. Ad valorem tax we collect, and we pursue it through lawsuits if someone doesn't pay it. But as far as occupational license, to my knowledge, and like I said, haven't totally researched it, but to my knowledge, we've never pursued a person civilly as far as filing a suit to try to collect an occupational license. That was always the parish's position.
Our permit office handles that.
Is this individual currently a sheriff employee?
Yes, he is.
He's currently a retired deputy working part-time.
Mr. Beers, you have something for us?
I don't know if my question's directed to you, Terry, or if it's more so for Marla, but the 18,000 that's written into the ordinance, is that to pick up, because you said his salary is 18,000?
Yeah, that's his salary.
So are we paying for the whole, we're paying for the whole salary? Am I correct in assuming?
You're paying for the salary, the
Okay.
18,000.
Then the only other thing I would ask is that in section 2, we have to identify a funding source. It doesn't say where the $18,914.31 is coming from. It just says to appropriate it. It doesn't, I mean, that's cleanup for one of us. Somebody's got to put a funding source in it, that's all.
Sorry. A funding source for the job.
You have two options. You have your unreserved undesignated, which has 209,000 left in it, and you have designated for sewer, that has 34,000.
Option A. Let's go with option A, y'all.
Unreserved undesignated.
We can add it to section 2.
And that's the two normal sources you use, Mr. Murray, which is also the designated for infrastructure that has 130-something thousand, but that's generally meant for projects and so forth.
Okay, let's go with option A, I would think, gentlemen. So we're gonna add that into section 2. Mr. Beers, funding source. Okay, let me remove my second.
And I'll offer with changes in section 2, add funding source, unreserved, undesignated fund.
And I'll second the motion again. Any other comment or question? Machine's open on 6 AAA.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Circovich. And the motion passes 9-0. Yes, sir. Going to move to item 6V, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the pump station capacity improvements parish-wide project and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Mr. Vieras?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to offer with a change, please. On line 17 in the blank, put funding source drainage/Jesuit Bend.
6V, ladies
6V
and gentlemen,
is,
I'm sorry.
V as in Victor. V as in Victor. On line 17, source drainage/Jesuit Bend. And with that, I'll offer and ask for a second.
I'll second. Mr. Vieras?
I'm scared to get to the microphone, it's so loud. This is an ongoing project for pump station capacity improvements parish-wide. Bert Conpeter is currently in the process of doing an assessment that will specifically affect districts 3, 4, and the upper portion of District 5. The intent is to alleviate drainage problems on the 2 pump stations in Belchase, and in the near future, hopefully build a new pump station on Walker Road that will help alleviate those problems and more appropriately drain districts 3, 4, and the upper portion of District 5. I had hoped to be able to move some of the money from the rollover into this, but given the fact that we are not clear on how much rollover, and given the fact that this project is already underway and the money is necessary to continue, I would ask my colleagues to support this.
Can you remove my second? I'm going to remove my second. Go ahead, Mr. Vieras.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen,
Different
I've been
funding source.
informed that that funding source does not have enough. There's a misunderstanding. We'll take it out of road maintenance, District 5, which does have enough in it.
Same amount, Mr. Vieras?
Same amount, 360,000, yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll second your motion.
Thank you, and again, I would ask for support.
Any comment or question? Machine's open on 6V. And it passes 9-0.
Thank you for your support.
Ms. Smaller, we are withdrawing 6A1. Smaller, we're going to withdraw 6A1. 6A1 will be withdrawn. Mr. Griffin, 6A2.
We're going to withdraw it at this time until we get the final information on it.
6A2 is withdrawn. 6A3 is withdrawn. Mr. Griffin, 6A4.
Here, we're going to defer that.
6A4 will be deferred. 6A5, Dr. Gouy. An ordinance authorizing Parish President William Billy Nungesser and Council Chairman Byron Renrich to enter and execute articles of incorporation for the establishment of Port East Fishing Refuge, a Louisiana nonprofit corporation, otherwise provide respect thereto. Dr. Gouy.
I'll offer, ask for a second.
I'll second. Dr. Gouy.
Several meetings ago, we had discussed the possibility of putting the Port East facility out for some type of private sector involvement. And it wasn't that members of the council were against the establishment of a nonprofit. We just wanted to know if there were any other fish out there that might be interested, and to see what would be in the best interest of our parish in regards to operation of the Portage Marina. This week, we received some information from our legal department that showed there were several other entities, specifically the state of Louisiana and the federal government, that were involved with that piece of property. And it became apparent through discussions with the legal department that it may not be something that that the allowing of a for-profit operation at the Portage Marina may not be something that would sit well with the state of Louisiana or the federal government because of the property ownership in the area and the leases that were granted to Plaquemines Parish government. So this has been going on for some time, and I think we need to put an end to discussion one way or another as to what we're going to do at the Portage Marina. I've asked Mr. Palazzo to be available today for comments and answering of any questions that any of the council members may have as to the scope and intention of this ordinance. So I open the floor, Mr. Chairman.
If you don't mind, Dr. Good, I'd like to weigh in on this. Probably at least 6 months ago, we have repeatedly asked the parish administration, particularly the attorney's department, to go out for RFPs to see if we had some options on this, which has absolutely been refused to been done. I've had 500 ignorant excuses of why it couldn't be done. It seems that when Mr. Nungesser wants some things done, they manage to get done overnight. When I've asked about this, it wasn't offered. I believe what we got going on here is an attempt to keep the status quo of a party place, which is exactly what this place was in the past, along with the area that was sometime used for drug trafficking. I do not wish to support this at this time until we can get some further information of whether the nonprofit can be done. I don't think we have any answers as far as what property we own and don't own. I don't know if we'll be precluded from actually putting a nonprofit in place. And to be honest with you, when I walked into the room with the interested parties with the nonprofit, seeing quite a few of the local movers and shakers in the room that had the parish's best interest at heart, I was quite astounded at the people I've seen in the room. And I'm going to certainly ask that if we can at least go out for the RFPs that I've asked the parish attorney's office to do in the past that were refused to be done according to our legislation. And I'm going to ask the council to vote against this. Mr. Vieras?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to piggyback on what you just echoed. We were given an email recently and handed a packet again today with an email in it from the legal staff. And on page 1 of the email, last paragraph, it says, "Because time is of the essence." I quote, "Because time is of the essence." As the chair alluded to, for many, many months, this council has asked for somebody in the parish administration to take a legal pad and put the pros and the cons on a piece of paper for each scenario, to bid it out or to do a nonprofit. We've also asked the administration to put down on paper for us what the fixed expenses are to operate this place. Because whether it's the parish government, whether it's a nonprofit, or whether it's a private entity, the fixed expenses are going to be the same. You got to dredge it, you know. You have insurance, which I'm not sure if you can get insurance on all of that facility. The buildings maybe because they're elevated, the dock and so on, you may not even be able to get insurance based on some information from other marina owners that I have. But here we go again, time is of the essence. I would also like to comment on the email in the second paragraph as it relates to potentially not being able to put this out for a private operator. Nobody at this table knows Port Eads any better than me. My father built that place after Hurricane Camille. I grew up there. That place was leased to a private operator for 20 or 25 years. So now all of a sudden it's illegal. And in this email, it says, and I quote, "Not only does the lease agreement not authorize us to sublease the property, but it also states the property's use as a public recreational area." Well, number one, just because it's leased to a private entity to operate doesn't mean that it is not a public recreational area. Number two, this email does not say that there is an express prohibition of it. It simply says that it doesn't authorize us to. And unless something is expressly prohibited in the law, meaning it shall not happen, then you can take it that it can occur. So if it's not expressly prohibited, then it's allowable. And then the last thing I would comment on, and the chairman commented on this again, and I go back to, I've got it circled because time is of the essence. The best way I can put it is just beat us up until we finally give in, because that's what this amounts to. And I'm gonna take the position that the chair took and ask that this not be supported today.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Any other comment or question?
I have to comment, my first comment is, I still love you guys, even though you guys want to beat us up over the legal department. And I appreciate what y'all are trying to do. Anthony, we've had talks, and I know this is dear to your heart. You grew up over there. We were given an assignment, the legal department was given an assignment to actually go out and try to create an RFP in reference to Port Ease. Unfortunately, I've never been out to Port Ease. I'd like to go out there one day. I heard it's a beautiful $30 million project. The problem that we've had is because it's a $30 million project, and what we're trying to do and the requirements that it takes, it's taking an enormous amount of time to put together an RFP. And last 2 weeks ago, we actually talked about it here at the council meeting. We are almost completed that RFP, and part of our completion was when we determined as soon as we determined it, we sent it to your attorney, and we sent it to every council member, a copy of a lease that was with the state of Louisiana, and a copy of documentation that shows that the federal government owns part of the property where we're building a $30 million marina. So to do our due diligence, we gave that information to you guys. We are still currently, as soon as I heard that information, I sent out our surveyor to go out there to clarify, and actually we're going to be preparing maps for the whole council members so they can see exactly what the parish owns. It's my understanding right now, I think we might actually own a walkway. It's going to be a pretty nice walkway, but that's the extent of what we own right now. We provided the council with the lease that says the lease is with the state of Louisiana, and the lease expires in 3 years. We spent some time calling up the state to try to find out who knew about this lease, because I don't believe anybody on the council knew about the lease. I don't know if Mr. Burris knew about the lease. I don't know if anybody on the council or in my administration or my legal team knew about who owned what, but we found it out. So we called up and we talked to the people at the state, and what they told us is that we've been in violation for the last 50 years of the way we've been operating Port Ease. And we asked them at that time, who do we need to talk to? Is there a possibility that what we're trying to do, can we get it to be done? And they told us about what we shared with the council and what Mr. Anthony, and because that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing here. All we're doing is giving information, because one of the things that came to my attention from the first day I've been here, there's been a lack of communication. And what we're trying to do is give the information to everybody about what's going on here. So we were told by the state that we were in violation of the lease, that this was supposed to be done for public recreation. And we told them about the idea of sending it out to the private. They said they didn't think they were going to go for it. We think, as responsible and attorneys and people representing the council and the parish, that we have to inform people of these issues, because when you're going to try to send something out for an RFP, that you want somebody, a private entity, to come in and lease a $30 million project and you don't own it, I think that's a big issue there. I think that's a big issue.
But it would be
So-
okay to give a nonprofit the same, would they be allowed to give it to a nonprofit if we don't own it?
So what we were doing is,
Palazzo?
what we were doing, well, let me finish and I'll answer your question. What we were doing is giving you this information, and we also, what we were doing, which has been on the table for months also, is giving you the second option. We don't have a dog in the fight. You guys make the rules. You guys make the decision. Y'all decide what you want to do. My job is, as your attorney, is to tell you the objectives, the issues, and the problems. That's my job, and that's all we're doing. So you decide how you want to handle it.
And
But let me finish. Let me finish.
Please do.
One thing with the time of the essence, which everybody needs to know here. But for the fact that the contractors on this project are several months behind, this project would be in our lap today, right now, and we would have to have somebody out there operating it and spending money on it right now. And that's what we meant by when they said time is of the essence. Time is of the essence because within 2 months, if you guys don't do something, one way or the other, 2 months, it's going to be in our lap, and we're going to have to be able to fund it and run it. That's your call.
First of all, our call was to ask you to do RFPs, and that's what we're supposed to do, and we tasked you to do what y'all refused to do. Second of all, I do
That's
not-
incorrect.
let me
That's
finish. No, it's not
incorrect.
incorrect. Let me
No,
finish.
it's totally incorrect.
Leo,
It's
I'm
totally
speaking now.
incorrect. Though, if you're gonna make a
You gonna tell me
statement,
we didn't
if
have
you
to
make a
pass that
statement, don't
legislation?
sit there and say, I refuse to do something. That is
You're wrong.
incorrect.
Stop. And the second thing, I do not want to hear about time is of the essence when y'all have been sitting on this for 6 months. And please do not tell me about the contractor being behind. When y'all keep picking contractors and giving out campaign contributions, that's exactly what's going on here. So please don't put that on our shoulders. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just want to say for the record, and I know that Stewart wants to move forward with it, and time is of the essence, but this was sent out yesterday at 5:04 PM, and I didn't know that what was in this envelope in front of me here until Anthony made reference to it, and I haven't had time to read it, and with all this going on, it won't sink in. And I know you want to move forward with it, but just for the record, I'm asking that you defer it again. You don't have to do that, I'm just stating my opinion for the record.
I'm sorry, Mr. Turner.
I guess my question to the administration is, and I think it's might be in line with what Mr. Beers was commenting on. And my question is, do we have a plan, realizing that in 2 months, this might very well fall in our lap? Do we at least have a contingency plan to handle it? It would be irresponsible not to have a plan as far as how we're going to protect our investment. Do you know if that exists? And if it doesn't exist, do you know if it's even being worked on?
The only two options I'm aware of is, number one, where we're gonna try to put it out for private entities. We've been hitting roadblock after roadblock with regards to that. We were giving you as much information as we can.
I'm
The
good on that.
second option is the nonprofit. I've talked to Ken Rathborn about that. We've shared our thoughts on that. I don't know.
But, Mr. Palazzo, then what concerns me is that at a minimum, we need a parish option. Because if none of those things pan out, or to not have anything in place or to even be working it, then that's holding us over a barrel and forcing our hands to go one way or the other. At a minimum, this administration needs a parish option, because we're going to be stuck with it in a minute. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. You must say, Mr. Griffin.
I have one other thought. And Mr. Palazzo, it's not my thought. I believe it was a thought that you came up with one day. If it's on state land and it's on federal government land, and we only own a walkway, why don't we give it back to them and let them operate it?
That's a good idea.
Mr. Griffin?
Mr. Palazzo, has the RFP been completed yet?
I believe it's about 99.9% completed. The only thing that stopped it was when we learned about the lease issues.
So if it's not completed, then we have no ground to move forward with this until it's completed. That's the way I would look at it.
There was never any intent to go out with the RFPs. This was tried to been shoved down our throats since day one.
The bottom line,
That's my
we
last
need
comment.
an administrative plan. The administration must come up with an answer, even if it's put a guard there, but you can't tell us that you haven't even considered it. That's totally, if that's the case, that is totally irresponsible. You're talking two options, and all of those are external. There needs to be an internal option. And so I would expect, Mr. Palazzo, I would expect the administration to come to us with a plan, even if it's just a straw man of a plan, at least in the next 2 weeks. We need something, and that's all I have.
I agree with you, Mr. Turner, and, you know, for those in the audience and those who haven't seen the lease, we're talking about a $100 lease, so we're not really exposed to any financial issues there. But what we're going to have to do is, once we take it over, I think it'd be the best interest that we're going to have to get some type of security system out there just to watch it, maintain it at this particular time.
Whatever it is, tell us something.
Yeah.
Come back with a plan.
Well,
And the truth.
I think we'd like y'all's input on that, too.
Let me just say this, we can wrap it up, I guess. Mr. Plaza, you know, I must say this to you. I think you've been very cooperative in getting information or communication with me. I don't know about the rest of you guys and ladies, but I can say that much. Now, as far as the other side of it, as far as cooperation is concerned, I mean, it's surely definitely lack of cooperation. Now, from who? We all know who it is. I mean, you know, so let's stop playing games and just move on with this thing one way or the other.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Any
Well,
other
clear the
comment or
board,
question?
Miss Hyde. Clear the board, please, thank you.
Another comment or question? Machine's open on this item. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a comment. Benny Roussel, 1012 Epsilon Street. We did operate this marina for many years, and it was leased. We had no problems with it. We knew we had a lease. And what I would suggest, after listening to the discussion today, is that you start contacting the state to renew the lease, even though it's 3 years ahead, if you're intent on operating this facility. And if you're looking for security, you simply put the Port Harbor Terminal District boat down there, and then you have a location, and you have parish employees that are on the payroll already. Security, that's their job. The second thing is, as far as the holdup, I'm used to the holdup. I'm glad to see that y'all are experiencing it now. Thank you very much.
The question I'm trying to find the answer to, because I keep hearing this $30 million coming up, this $30 million. But when you start talking about $30 million, and then you're saying you're putting together a nonprofit to deal with $30 million, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that part. How do you get a nonprofit to go on state property or parish property? How they operate the money? Where the money go from that they generate off that thing? I still don't understand how you can put a nonprofit over $30 million. Something about that stinks to me. There's some hidden stuff going there, I don't know, but I know I kept hearing Mr. Palazzo kept talking about the $30 million. The $30 million, to me, is one of the keys you got to talk about here. And when you talk about putting a nonprofit, I like to see who's that nonprofit. You can't bring a group of businessmen together and call them a nonprofit.
Reverend, if you want to get with me later, we can do that in private.
Hey, you know, I've been coming here since the 70s, and I heard a lot of pretty stories about how good it is. Hey, look, Mr. Palazzo, more power with you, but it is what it is, man. They want to make this a, you gotta have a whole lot of money, good boy situation here. Hey, let's tell it like it is. But hey, that belongs to the people. If the parish leases or whatever it is, it belongs to Plaquemines Parish, not just a few guys. And the nonprofit deal, I guarantee you, I didn't see the Articles of Incorporation, but it sure like it involved those guys.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that has anything to say about this? Anyone else? Come on.
If we built a $12 or $15 million facility or a $30 million facility on somebody else's property, how did that happen? Who authorized FEMA, or at FEMA gave us the money to build on somebody else's property?
Probably
which
the
is a
same
basic.
person that burnt the buildings down across the river.
Thank you.
I think that we've had
Same person.
more discussion, and I think very constructive discussion on this issue, because it has laid dormant, and no one wanted to put it on the table. No one wanted to talk about it, because of the controversy, or at least the perceived controversy. I think it's a straight-up deal. One question is, what does it cost to operate the Portage Marina? If Joe Blow operates it, if Buzzy comes back from heaven and operates it, if Byron operates it, doesn't matter who it is, what does it cost to operate it? So if we're gonna have a backup plan of any kind, we gotta know what we're getting into. I've asked that question numerous times, and people are trying to put that together. And until that question is answered, we really can't make a move on private sector investment, public, nonprofit, parish, port, I don't care who it is, until we know what does it cost. So I think we've accomplished a lot today that we haven't accomplished over the last few weeks, and I'm going to defer this. Mission accomplished. What was the mission? I forgot. Smarter than
To
you
see me
are
get
when you
riled
start.
up, I guess. Mr. Bureau, 6A6. Re-subdivision, back now. An ordinance, this is 6A6, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of property of Glen L. Backnell, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on map of re-subdivision, property of Glen Backnell, Star Plantation by Hugh McCurdy III, PLS, dated October 25th, 2012, the owners having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines, without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines. Whereas Glen L. Backnell is owner of property situated in the parish of Plaquemines, state of Louisiana, shown on map of re-subdivision, property of Glen Backnell Star Plantation by Hugh McCurdy III, PLS, dated October 25th, 2012, a copy whereof is annexed hereto and made part hereof, and. Mr. Vieras?
I'll offer as read and ask for a second, please.
I'll second. Mr. Vieras?
In looking through this, the gentleman's taken one lot, dividing it into two. There are no objections from any parish department, so I would ask that we move on this.
Thank you, Mr. Vieras. Any other comment or question? Machine is open on 6A6. And it passes 9-0. Ms. Cooper, 6A7. He was.
Okay, I'll offer.
An ordinance, this is 6A7, an ordinance warranting future and current Plaquemines Parish government administrations will construct, maintain, and monitor plus or minus 205 acres of mitigation. Ms. Cooper?
I'll offer.
I'll second. Ms. Cooper?
PJ's here to explain it.
PJ Hahn, Coastal Director for Plaquemines Parish Government. This is in regards to Reach B2, and basically what it's going to do is going to allow us to continue to do this project with only a letter to the Corps regarding the mitigation aspects of it. So we're not going to have to put in the money that it would normally be required to put up for mitigation on this project. And that's going to be through that letter, and hold on, there's going to be, probably need to take up number 7 first, or excuse me, UU, authorizing President Ungesser to sign the agreement, and number 7 is the agreement.
Ms. Cooper, you gonna go to UU first?
Yeah, we can pass over.
I'm gonna remove my second, Ms. Cooper.
Okay.
6UU, a resolution authorizing the parish president for, on behalf of the Plaquemines Parish government to provide compensatory mitigation by means of permitting responsible mitigation projects to offset wetland losses per 33 CFR 332 for impacts associated with construction of Plaquemines Parish government's coastal restoration plan, Reach B2 Vegetated Ridge Project, New Orleans District Corps of Engineers, permit number MVN 2009-0435-EFF, while providing additional hurricane protection for the residents of Plaquemines Parish. This one's under Mr. Edgecombe's name.
Offer.
I'll second. Mr. Edgecombe?
Again, this letter is going to authorize Billy to sign, President Ungesser to sign an agreement with the Corps saying that the mitigation, we will not have to put up the money for the mitigation.
Self-mitigation.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Any other comment or question? Machine's open on 6UU. And the resolution passes 9-0. We'll revert back to Ms. Marlar's. an ordinance warranting future and current Plaquemines Parish government administrations will construct, maintain, and monitor plus or minus 205 acres of mitigation. Ms. Cooper, you're offering. I'll second again. Ms. Cooper? Self-explanatory.
Yep.
Mr. Turner?
Mr. Hahn,
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming we've already identified the area, and if so, what area are we talking about for the mitigation?
That's the Reach B2 area, which is from Boothville to Venice.
So I understand that, the mitigation area, what area are we talking about?
That is the mitigation.
It runs approximately behind Boothville.
It runs, correct. Runs along Boothville on the outside of the levees, on the outside levees.
Gotcha.
Anyone else? Mr. Russell, you have something for us, sir?
Benny Roussel, 1012 Epsilon Street. I'd like to know if there is a copy of this agreement available to the public. Because, as you know, for the last couple of months, I've been asking for a copy of an agreement on another coastal project, and the other day you called me and told me it didn't exist after Mr. Horn said he would bring it for a month straight. So is there a copy of this that we may look at?
Mr. Hahn?
What will happen is we will take, first of all, let me address the first one that you brought up, and that was the Bud Map program that he's referring to, and that's the agreement. What we did was we submitted a resolution to the council asking for the approval for Billy to sign, President Ungesser to sign the agreement with Bud Map. In the meantime, we're still waiting back from the Corps for that agreement, so we do not have that agreement yet from the Bud Map program. This particular agreement was sent to every council member, and I can send it and put it on the web or wherever else you want it. But this agreement was signed, or excuse me, the letter was sent to each council office along with the resolution.
Mr. Hahn, I would ask that you send it again, and if you would, Mr. Russell, if you could provide your contact information, and then please contact me and make sure you get that information, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comment or question? Machine is open on 6A7. The ordinance passes 9-0. Mr. Griffin, 6A8.
We're going to defer 6-8 until United Buck have a representative to come and answer some questions. I think that Mr. Turner had at the last council meeting and some other ones. So we're going to defer that until the next council meeting. They're supposed to have someone here today, but nobody showed up here.
But these are the same. Okay, so 6A8 will be deferred, Mr. Griffin? Thank you, sir. We're going to withdraw 6B. 6C will be withdrawn. 6D will be withdrawn. 6E, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, so we're going to move forward with that one.
A resolution appointing District 1 Councilman Griffin, Reverend Tyrone Edwards, and 3 community individuals as members of the parish's ferry feasibility committee to review, advise, and make recommendations to parish government regarding the parish's ferry system and otherwise provide respect thereto. Mr. Griffin?
I so often.
Do we have a second?
Okay, yeah, I'm off with changes. Off
Okay.
with changes.
These blanks, Mr. Griffin, if you would, sir. I have Mr. Edwards on here and yourself.
Okay, that's correct spelling of Reverend Tyrone Edwards' name. It's going to be Tyrone. On line 8, we're going to put Reverend Tyrone, Tyrone. On line 16, we're going to insert Councilman Percy P.V. Griffin. Line 19, insert the word Reverend and Tyrone. Scratch out member and put chairman. On line 22, we're going to insert that blank with District 6 Councilman Burgard Turner. On line 25, we're going to have Mr. Cliff LaFrance. On line 28, we're going to have Mr. Darrell Domain.
Domain.
I think it's Dominque. And on line 29, after "and," we're going to have that it is hereby appoints a representative from Chevron Incorporation to serve as member of Parish Feasibility Committee, and that's gonna be on line 30 and 31. And on line 32, it's gonna read the same, that it hereby appoints a representative from PABI, P-A-B-I, to serve as a member of Parish Feasibility Committee. And I'll so offer.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Turner?
I second it.
Do you have a second? Mr. Griffin?
Okay, several months ago, back in February, we had the issue with the Port Lahad Ferry, and Mr. Nungesser and some people in the community was concerned about them closing down the Port Lahad Ferry, which is not going to happen. The committee, the thought came out about putting a committee together to do an analysis or do a survey on what the condition of the ferry landing was and where would it be feasible to put the new Port Lahad ferry landing on the east bank and west bank.
Leo.
Even considering putting one ferry centralized the parish. So this committee was formulated to do that work, and Reverend Tyrone Edwards has accepted the responsibility as chairing this committee, and at some point the committee will report back to the council of our findings.
That's a change, isn't it? Go ahead, Dr. Cooley.
PV, shouldn't this say the Point LaHash ferry system? Because nobody's from Belchase in here, and they're running two in Belchase and one down the
One, yeah.
road. The problems with Point LaHash, that we have an issue, we ought to make it a Point LaHash
No.
issue.
Well, but if put it, someone from Chevron, which is up the highway in Belchase, but I know it's not a resident of Belchase, but
How many members on the committee?
it's about 7 or 8 people really.
And how many from up the road?
Chevron.
Yeah, come on. It's really the Point LaHash ferry that brought this up.
But we can make the adjustment now.
Let me just say this, Councilman Gui, how I got involved in this, it was at a Pappy luncheon at Perrier Golf Club, and President Unguster was making a presentation. He started talking about the master plan, and somewhere he talked about the citizen committee that was supposed to be involved in it as it relates to ferry. And then I was saying to him, I said, well, you know, when you gonna have a city committee look at ferries, not just the Point Lahad, because one of the issues came up that it would move the ferry to Jesuit Bend, right? And I think, so that came up by moving the ferry to Jesuit Bend. The issue came up by having one ferry in Plaquemines Parish. So the issue came up, we need to develop a parish-wide committee and with members, because Mr. Juno from Belchase asked to be on it, get other business people in Belchase, where it would be more than just people from the East Bank and just from the southern part of the parish, but the northern part of the parish, that this committee would represent a cross-representation of people throughout Plaquemines Parish to look at the ferry issues, not just the Point Lahad, because there was a move to saying, let's just have one ferry and put it in Jesuit Bend, and then we'll look at this ferry that run 24 hours and all.
Reverend Edwards, can I ask a question? Who mentioned putting the ferry in Jesuit Bend, one ferry in Jesuit Bend? Where did that come from?
That came up at a meeting with President Nungesser and was that when they was talking at the Pappy luncheon. And I just say that we need to look at all the ferry period and get a committee of people together to look at the whole history of the ferry, what happened after Katrina, because it was so it never was meant, Dr. Gui, to talk about just a Point Lahad ferry.
Well, let me tell you something.
Okay, can I stop
There
you
ain't
for
no
1 second?
way.
Can I stop you for 1 second, please? I'll let you speak. We've been informed that this preamble has been changed, the substantive language in it has been changed, and it's not proper to vote on what we're gonna do. I'll let Dr. Gui make his remarks, but basically we are not gonna be able to vote on this today. Mr. Turner, I'm gonna ask you to remove his second. Mr. Griffin's agreed to address the language and get it corrected, and we'll have it on the agenda at a later date.
And I'm just saying,
Yes.
when you change the language to reflect that this would be a parish-wide ferry feasibility committee, can make a member throughout Plaquemines Parish that represent business from all parts of the parish and community represented. I think that's the key thing that need to be put in the language.
Yeah, and in the meantime, you know, we can, at least Reverend Edwards can seek out somebody from Belchase and put their name in the slot. you know.
Well, I don't know
Yeah,
why
something.
y'all want to
Yeah.
waste all this time. There ain't no way we can move this ferry away from Point LaHash. That is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot do that, because the parish on the east bank is cut off with water, and you've got everybody isolated down here with no way out. So this is a crock. This is a crock. And you're not gonna put a ferry in the middle of Belchase, because, I mean, in the middle of the parish, because you got the same problem. How are you gonna get through in time of a storm? Y'all wanna waste all your time and develop nothing that's not gonna pass? Have at it. But I'm not gonna participate in this, because you need a ferry in Belchase, you need a ferry in Point LaHash, and that's it. Why are we kidding ourselves and going through all of this? It's just a crock. You wanna kill something, you put it in a committee. That's how you kill something, all right? There's nothing to kill. There ain't gonna be no ferry in the middle of Belchase. We all know that. I mean, the parish, and we all know that. Why don't we just tell it like it is? Fix the ferry so it works in Point LaHash, problems in Belchase, fix them, and let's get on with more important business, because you cannot get rid of this ferry.
I've got one comment. Ditto.
I agree.
And with that, we're gonna defer the legislation, y'all, until we come up with something else. Mike?
Michael Rodriguez, Point LaHash, 143 Reynolds Lane. I wanted to answer your question, Ms. Beards. The man that's not here, he's the one that said that. He said that on the news. He wanted to put a ferry in the middle of the parish, Mr. Nungesser. He's the one that said that. And thank you, Mr. Gurry, because this thing has to stay here. I fought it hard, and y'all know I fought it hard. I'm the one that started a recall because of this, of Mr. Nungesser. And while I'm up here, can I say one thing?
Please do, sir.
We have all of a sudden changed our ferry department uniforms on the decks of the ferry. And they are dark blue with fluorescent stripes on them, the shirts and the pants. I can understand the pants, but not dark blue shirts when you're working on an iron deck of a ferry in the summertime. And only the ferry deckhands' uniforms have been changed. Y'all talking about money and not having enough money, and I know uniforms aren't that expensive, but I think this was a waste of money. And the way I understand it, because one certain person didn't have his orange vest on, so someone took on themselves to decide to change the uniforms where they put orange stripes on them and made them dark blue instead of the parish colors, the light blue shirts like they normally wear. I know I wouldn't want to be on the deck of that ferry with no dark blue, dark navy blue uniform. And I have a little report here from OSHA, and that's one of the things they say in that. Light, loose fit clothing. And I will hand one of y'all, each one of y'all, one of these so y'all can look at them. But also while I'm up here, I have one other thing, and I'll get out of y'all way. I want to know if we ever found out about the burning of the houses on the property up the road. Did we ever find out anything about that?
As far as I'm concerned, sir, what I've been able to ascertain as to this date, the fire
I'd like
department.
to call order on that issue. That's not before the agenda right now.
I'm
Okay.
going to have to go with him on that.
All right.
It's on the agenda, we can address it later.
Okay, I thank y'all.
Mr. Lazo. Thank you.
And in reference to his comment with regards to Mr. Nungesser's idea that the ferry would go into the middle of the parish, that idea was originated by the master plan, not by Mr. Nungesser.
Okay, let's move on. Mr. Turner, I'm going to ask you to remove your second on this one, sir.
I'll remove it.
Okay, and Mr. Griffin, I'd ask you to just look at the legislation to define if it's necessary, as we spoke about, and if you feel that it is, then at the time, I'd ask you just to, just get the language straight.
Yeah, we're gonna defer it until next council meeting, and then I'll make a decision how we handle it.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Griffin.
Chairman, was the question, was it different from what was originally proposed?
Well,
Is that-
the preamble is not matching
The
what's going
preamble is
on
not-
in the
it's
language.
not the same?
Yes, sir. It doesn't match, so we're going to need to address that if we bring the legislation back up.
Okay, so he's gonna be offering it would change next time,
If he decides to re-offer it, we would change it, yes, sir.
which is what he's able to do right now, offer it would change. And I'm just making sure.
No, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move
But I
on.
just want to
Okay.
make sure I understood why we were moving on.
6F, Mr. Edgecombe, we're going to be with deferring. Thank you, sir. 6G, Mr. Griffin, defer.
6G, yes, sir, we're gonna move on that.
We're going to move forward with it. Do we not have something separate with a contract? Mr. Griffin, we actually have something in here with the contract, if you want to look at that one. Let me get the other, what's the other one? Find it from real quick.
Ms. Cooper's offering a contract with the name already in place, so do we want to do appoint the name, or we just want to entertain the contract with the name in it?
Would this cover both? CZ would cover both? This should cover both, right? This one? ZZ covering G? Stuart?
It's on 6ZZ.
ZZ should cover G, correct? Okay, let's do this, Mr. Griffin. We're gonna move to 6ZZ, and I think that would cover the same language in 6G, I think. Okay, a resolution authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Parish Council Chairman to enter an employment contract for services as Parish Council Secretary between the Plaquemines Parish Council and Kim M. Toops by signing the employment contract to enter into said contract for a term of 2 years, authorizing and directing the chairman to sign the documents to enter into the contract by the close of business on May 31st, 2013, and otherwise to provide respect thereto, subject to council approval of the hiring of said person. Mr. Griffin, you want to offer this one?
Yes, sir.
And I'm
Mr.
going to
Cooper?
second. Mr. Griffin?
Yeah. It's time that we move forward with this project. You know, we've been having a temporary interim secretary, and I think to eliminate all the confusion, we need to give this young lady some security in this job. She's been doing a fine job, and we need to go in and do what we have to do to make this job permanent for this period of time. And that's all I have to say on that.
With the addition of this language, you still need to do the other one, because it's subject to count hired. So you need to appoint.
Which one you do first? ZZ, right?
I don't know, where,
Ken? We gotta go ZZ first and then G.
do we need to appoint first and then go back to this because of this last sentence? So do we have to do this first to hire me, then come back and authorize this?
Contract after.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Let me, we didn't second it. Mr. Griffin, I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna remove my second. We're gonna go to 6G first. A resolution appointing, and we're gonna fill in the blank with Kim M. Toops as Secretary of Plaquemines Parish Council, otherwise file respect thereto. Line 3, we'll put Kim M. Toops again. Effective date will be, and today's date is 23rd. Okay, so reading this again, it'll be this is 6G, a resolution appointing Kim M. Toops as Secretary of Plaquemines Parish Council, otherwise with respect thereto. The changes will be on line 3, adding Kim Toops, and line 4, May 23rd, 13. Mr. Griffin, you're offering.
I so offer.
And Mr. Lepine wants a second. Do you have any comment or question about this? Machine's open on 6.
I just want to congratulate you, Kim, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Machine's open on 6G. Congratulations, Ms. Kim, you're Council Secretary. Now, let's see if we want to pay you.
Thank you.
6ZZ, on motion of Council Member Griffin. A resolution authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Parish Council Chairman to enter an employment contract for services Parish Council Secretary between the Plaquemines Parish Council and Kim M. Toops. For signing the employment contract, to enter into said contract for a term of 2 years, authorizing and directing the chairman to sign the documents to enter into the contract by the close of business on May 31st, 2013. and otherwise to provide respect thereto, subject to council approval of the hiring of said person. Mr. Griffin, you're offering,
I
sir?
so offer.
I'll second. Mr. Griffin?
It is what it is. Let's move.
That's pretty brief. Do you have any comment or question? 6ZZ is open.
No, we could let the date stay that she's been appointed today, but he have until the 31st to sign the contracts and confirm
Correct.
everything.
Mr. Griffin? Mr. Turner? And we have 7-1 with a no vote coming from District 6. 6H will pass over, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 6I, Mr. Pierce, you ready for that one, sir? You gonna withdraw I at this time?
Take a look at you on there. It's under your name. See, just read it. Don't go to it.
Okay. 6I has been withdrawn. Mr. Hinckley, 6J.
6J.
Pause.
Oh, I'm gonna withdraw.
6J will be withdrawn. Thank you, Mr. Hinckley. 6K, Ms. Lapine, I think you told me we're gonna withdraw. 6K is withdrawn. Six L will be deferred. 6N will be deferred. 6O will be deferred. 6P, Mr. Turner.
Withdraw.
6P will be withdrawn. 6Q, Mr. Edgecombe, we withdraw. I'm sorry, defer. 6R, Mr. Payne, we're gonna withdrawn or defer, withdrawn? Thank you, sir. Six U will be deferred. Move to this one, 6U will be deferred. Mr. Hinckley?
No, no, you, that's yours. That's yours.
Deferred. Six S, an ordinance to amend the general fund 2013 operating expenditure budget, flood control department, personal services line items, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. I will offer and ask for a second. Second by Dr. Gui. And some explanation.
It's a transfer of money. That'd be, Scott.
Do we have anybody explain this to us?
Scott,
Scott,
is that you, babe?
6S, sir.
Guy from, the liquid natural gas is here, but he's gonna quit the journey. We wanna let him get out of here, we have to recess, and we can go to the court, and get his.
I'm gonna run through this stuff quick, dude, I promise.
That's
I'm
great.
busting my ass.
No, I just hate to see.
What we're wanting to do is move the fundings from the supervisor's position, from the heavy equipment, and make a assistant manager's position to oversee heavy equipment in Prome's department. As he'll be over both of those departments.
She moved from what to assistant manager?
A supervisor's position to a a supervisor's position.
I'm sorry, 6S, I'm gonna withdraw, thank you. 6T, we're gonna defer, Mr. Williams. 1.4 million. puts off a water plant?
Currently, I don't think that the funds are available, but it is still a project we need to go forward with. FEMA has deemed that there were maintenance issues that we had that were not due to the storm. So there was some issues on our end that the parish will be on the hook to pay those eligible costs of that 1.4, along with the FEMA funds, to get this water plant back up to code and standard.
So we're not fully understanding where we're going, so we can defer this matter for now, be okay?
Yes, sir, but we had to keep it on the table as well.
Thank you, sir. We did you already.
You deferred it? You jumped to it at one point, and then you just said it.
I don't know if we deferred it, deferred it.
We need to get together, because I'm gonna introduce something today that's very similar to the one we're talking about.
Okay, that'll be fine. 6W, Mr. Burris will be deferring at this time. 250,000 Walker Road. W's deferred. 6W will be deferred this time. Mr. Turner, 6X will be deferred this time. Levy work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. 6X is deferred.
Mr. Chairman, let me offer for discussion. He wants a quick explanation. It's going to be quick.
Okay, go right ahead. 6X, let me read. Ordinance appropriating the sum of blank for the Plaquemines Parish Levy System Improvements Project, and otherwise provide respect thereto. Mr. Turner?
The reason we're deferring it is because...
Mr. Turner, you're off,
I
and
offer.
Anthony Beers
I
is
offer.
second. Go ahead, right ahead.
The reason we're deferring it is, I believe Mr. P.J. Hahn checked with Mr. Blair, and we're trying to get a cost, and the cost is $4 million. So the work needs to be done. I'm being told that we have to get this line moved, and I believe it's on the riverside. It has to be moved in order to get the work done, but right now we just don't have the money in the budget to do it. It costs $4 million. My hands are tied on it. Therefore, I'm deferring it.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. 6X is now deferred.
Chairman, can we go back to S, please, 6S? What that is we're trying to move the vacant monies that we had in the payroll for the vacancies and put it towards the levy for levy repairs throughout the parish. That's what that's-
I read it to be outside contracting services for grass cutting.
No, that was the other one that y'all withdrew. That was the $200,000. The one for the grass cutting was for $200,000.
Let me read this. I'm going to paragraph 4. Whereas, since the parish has experienced difficulty filling vacant positions in the flood control department, the parish would like to contract services for the maintenance of the levee system. That's exactly what it says.
Mr. Chairman, I do recall one specifically for $200,000 for the grass cutting services. All right. And I'm just saying it's different
I
from...
understand, but this is contracting more grass cutting services. And a move to professional services, Mr. Gooey's, Dr. Gooey's kindly pointed out to me for $233,580. We thought we sitting here arguing, spent 30 minutes arguing about pay rates a while ago, and here we are contracting outside services again.
I'm just
And
explaining what it was for.
I understand, sir. It'll stay withdrawn. 6Y, Mr. Edgecombe, we're gonna defer at this time? Thank you, sir. Mr. Hinckley, 6Z, we're gonna defer at this time? Thank you, sir. A resolution authorizing the parish president to advertise for statements of qualifications from law firms to provide professional legal services for the investigation, preparation, filing, and handling of such injunctive, declaratory, or other actions as are necessary to ensure compliance with coastal zone laws, statutes, and regulations. Mr. Hinckley, you're offering?
No offer.
I'll second. Mr. Hinckley?
What this is, this will be, law firms will come in, this has to do with coastal restoration. For years, oil companies have come in and they've dug channels and also pits where they were drilling or doing work in our marshlands.
And also abandoning a lot of material in place.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, what they were supposed to do, they were supposed to bring everything back to its original condition. And what this is here on a contingency, these firms will come in, once a firm has been selected, they will come in and they will go to the original oil companies, the companies that did file for the permit, and to get monies and
for the coastal restoration here in Plaquemines Parish. Mr. Rathburn, if there's any questions, he can probably help us out pretty good with this also.
I was also included in the meeting, and from what I understand, Mr. Hinckley, correct me if I'm wrong, we're actually looking at some of the firms which are solvent. We're not actually trying to collect monies to put into the budget, but we're actually looking to do some actual coastal restoration because some of these small bayous that were dug are now open bays. We're also looking at pollution issues as far as pits are concerned, and also a lot of equipment that was just rudely abandoned in place. And these companies have an obligation under state law, from what I understand, to bring these properties whole and bring them back to its original natural composite.
And some of the concerns that was brought to my attention is that the oil companies would be afraid that we would be running out the oil companies. But in Cameron Parish, there's an issue, a situation where an oil company has, they lost the suit or they agreed to pay the damages, but at the same time, they're also drilling a new well in that same field that they did work in years ago. So the issue is there's a lot of oil and gas here. They're not going to abandon Plaquemines Parish, even though we move forward with this.
That's right. You normally drill what oil is. Thank you, Mr. Hinckley, for your explanation. Mr. Henry?
Are we going to be able to recoup some of these fees? Are we paying these attorneys?
Well, what's going to happen, from what I understand, there's a setup.
A lot of money, man.
Mr. Henry? What I understand that from the conversation we had, that the attorney's fees will be recouped from the actual companies that are responsible for any damage that may have been caused. And our part of it is not actually. It's in a contingency. We're not gonna outlay any money whatsoever. And our part of it is we're not really looking for monies. We're actually looking to restore our coast on both sides of the parish.
Yeah, I'm for the legislation. I just want to make sure, I mean, it's a good idea, but I don't want us to go in the holes
We're not
paying for these attorneys. That's all.
We're not going to be appropriating a dime for this.
Well, I'm with it, then. I'm fine for that.
All right.
I'm with that.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Anyone else? Machines open on 6AA. And it passes 9-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Hinckley, 6BB will be deferring, sir. 6CC will defer.
I was wanting to defer, but this is, let me go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go. In order to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the engine replacement Bell Chase 1 pump station project and otherwise provide respect thereto. Mr. Hinckley, you're offering?
Yes, I'm going to offer.
I'm seconding. Mr. Hinckley, go right ahead.
This here is, it's a project that's going on. We had appropriated, I think, a little bit over $1 million here about 4 or 5 years ago. It's a pump that's being replaced in pump station number 1. This is some additional cost. The work is being done right now, so we need to find the $40,000.
You think this will be a final figure and will be settled?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, yeah, this is up for unseen damage. The Corps putting a protected wall in front, and that's where this is.
So we good to go, Mr. Shell?
I'd like to move forward. If I could get a second. Did we get a second here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'd like to move on this if we could.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, machines open on 6CC. And it passes 9-0.
Defer DD.
6DD will be deferred. Thank you, Mr. Hinckley. 6EE will be deferred. Thank you, Ms. Lapine. 6FF, a resolution to appoint one of the 2 Plaquemines Parish members of the West Bank Rail Transportation Authority and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Dr. Gouy.
I'll offer.
Second by Mr. Hinckley. Dr. Gouy.
6FF and GG, although we're not on GG, so I won't have to repeat myself.
Do you want to do the global?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Back when we decided not to reappoint 2 members of the West Bank Rail and Transportation Authority, that left 2 vacancies. According to the ordinance that set up the authority, it was incumbent upon the authority to appoint 2 members to fill those vacancies. And what they did, they appointed Mr. Dominic Scandur to fill one of the vacancies, which was vacated by an attorney. And then also they decided to fill the other position, which will come up on GG. What I'm asking is that we just concur with those appointments. West Bank Rail and Transportation Authority has been working diligently with the Rio Grande Railroad to, with the extension efforts to get the rail further down south and for the relocation to get the rail out of Belchase and Gretna. And I just ask that we approve these people and move on.
And for the audience, who are the two people?
I'll answer, well, we're doing one now. That's FF. That's Mr. Dominic Scandura.
Thank you,
Any
sir.
further comment or question on this matter? Mr. Attorney, you have something for us, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Machine's open. And it passes 8-0 with an abstention from District 8. 6GG, a resolution to appoint 1 or 2 Plaquemines Parish members of the West Bank Rail Transportation Authority and otherwise provide respect thereto. Dr. Gouy, you're offering?
I'll offer, ask for a second.
Mr. Hinckley seconding. Dr. Gouy?
This is the legislation, the same as what we previously discussed. The appointee in this case is Mr. Robert Wolf.
Thank you, Dr. Gouy. Mr. Henry, you have something
Do
for us,
one
sir?
question, the rail authority, is that a paid position or non-paid?
Unpaid.
Okay.
This question, Mr. Robert Wolf, what area is he from? Where does he live?
Lives in
Is he in this
Belchase, if
area?
I'm not mistaken, he's in the construction business. Anyone else? Machine is open on 6GG. And it passes 8-0 with an abstention from District 8. Item 6HH, an ordinance to amend the general fund 2013 operating expenditure budget, coastal zone management department line item, office of computer hardware, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. I'm going to offer and ask for a second. Second for Mr. Griffin. PJ, briefly.
Yes, sir. Basically, Krista Clark, my assistant, her computer crapped out, so we need another computer. And my understanding is it's $3,700. That sounds high, but that's what our IT folks are telling us we need for a new computer.
Thank you. Any other comment or question?
Yeah. Not only do I think it's high,
I
way
said the same
high.
thing. They must be
And-
losing,
and
our
number-
IT guys must be losing at the track.
and number two, you can't find that much in your budget to move around to buy a computer,
Well,
given everything that the difficulties we're having here with everything else.
Well, obviously, there's certain things we can use for computers and other things for projects. All of my money's tied up in projects. And that's what what I was going to move to after this one is XX to move some money around.
Ms. Marlin?
And you have to remember something, this isn't a personal computer, they're selling it to the government, that's why it's so high.
Well, yeah, gotta be something.
Well, to weigh in again, I just
don't buy the
bought some
computers.
computers that didn't cost near that.
I said the same thing.
Any other comment or question? Machine's open on 6HH. Mr. Pierce? And it passes 9-0.
Thank you very much. Can I ask a favor? First of all, number one of the things that we found working with the council was the lack of communication amongst a lot of departments, and what we did was work very hard to put a little newsletter together to all the council members. I'd like to pass this thing out. I'd also like to let you all know we're going to do this on a monthly basis, so a lot of it's going to be the projects that are coming up, future projects. A lot of your constituents may be asking about is all being here. We started off with the first thing on the front cover, which is the FEMA flood map issues. So I just want to pass that out to you real quick. And if I could do one more, which is XX.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. We'll move to 6XX. Ms. Cooper, if it's okay with you. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the CAP jump basin dredging and marsh creation project and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ms. Cooper, are you offering? I'll second. Ms. Cooper?
Same thing, PJ's here if you have any questions.
What happened during the Isaac, FEMA did an evaluation on a project that we're doing, Jump Basin. Part of it was eligible for cleanup. They were starting to work on that project, and we had a lot of debris come in there that messed up the project. FEMA is not covering all of the project. They covered some of it, but not all of it, which means CAP needs to be reimbursed. What we did was, we have the money for it, we're just within my budget, and so we're just moving those funds around. And you have it in front of you where the money's at and how it's going to be moved around. It's just, that's all we're asking for.
And I'm kind of just briefly going through it, Mr. Hahn, and I don't see any additional funds coming from our revenue sources. This is just moving some money around,
Yes, sir,
correct?
that's already in the budget, and we're just trying to move it from other projects to cover this. And
Any
it's
other-
and it's the CF funds, which are federal funds, so we got to repay that.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Cooper, you good with this? Thank you, ma'am. 6XX, the board is open. And the ordinance passes 9-0.
Thank you very much.
Six II will be deferred at this time. Six JJ will be deferred at this time. 6KK will be deferred at this time. Um, 6LL looks like a withdrawal. Six MM, Mr. Edgecombe is going to be offering with substitute in order to amend the Road Maintenance Fund 2013 Manpower Structure and Operating Expenditure Budget, Public Right-of-Way Maintenance Department, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Mr. Edgecombe, you are offering,
Yes, sir.
and I'll second. Mr. Edgecombe?
First, Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
What we'd like to do is defund the fundings from a supervisor's position from heavy equipment and move that, the funding to the PROM department and establish a assistant manager's position that would oversee the PROM department and heavy equipment. Once that position is filled, then we'll ask for y'all to defund the superintendent position in the PROM department, and then ask for a supervisor's position in the PROM department. As far as when it,
Wait, let me stop you 1 second. I'm a little confused. So you asking us to take the money, shift it to the assistant manager's job because you're taking away the supervisor's job, yet you're asking us to redo the supervisor at a later date?
no, sir, that supervisor's position's been vacant for 2+ years, 3 years. We haven't filled it.
Did you just not make mention of another supervisor position after the fact you're looking for later?
Yes, sir, but that's gonna be in the PROM department where we'll ask you to defund a superintendent's position.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, sir. Any other comment or question? I'm sorry, Ms. Cooper, go right ahead.
So this one assistant manager, he's gonna be more or less the supervisor of two departments?
Correct.
And we're gonna get rid of those positions because they're not filled right now, right? Those
We're gonna get
supervisors.
rid of a supervisor's position in heavy equipment that's been vacant for 2+ years.
Okay.
Once that position is hired, assistant manager's position, then we'll ask for y'all to defund a superintendent's position in PROM's department and ask for a supervisor's position in that department.
Any other comment or question? Mr. Turner, go right ahead.
Okay, the supervisor position that you are eliminating and replacing with an assistant manager's position, what's the cost difference?
Trying to be nice, I went off once already today.
Are we just changing the name, or are we moving money here?
No, it's a little bit more money. What is the starting salary of from a supervisor to a assistant manager?
You want to answer that question?
But
Well, why are we changing it? I mean,
Didn't think so.
help me
What
out
we're
here.
gonna end up doing is take the difference from a assistant manager's position in a in a superintendent's position, because you're gonna be eliminating a superintendent's position and funding a assistant manager. So what's the difference between a superintendent and a assistant manager?
Assistant manager starts at 47,577.
Yeah.
Which he'll oversee 2 departments as assistant manager, where a superintendent only sees 1 department, no matter what the size is,
And the superintendent starts out at 40,591.
a $7,000 difference. And then we'll eliminate a supervisor, well, it's gonna be a $7,000
Wait, we're
difference
talking
between
about
the 2.
adding 2 positions, eliminating 2 positions? How many positions total are we eliminating?
One.
1.
The supervisor positions, how many positions we're creating?
One.
1. You're gonna eliminate a superintendent's position when it's all said and done.
Supervisor.
Because you're gonna request the supervisor's position for prome, so that's gonna overwash. But
Right now,
then,
you get
then,
rid of a supervisor position.
correct.
Okay.
But when it's all said and done at the end of,
We get some more info, what you think?
at the end, yes.
Anthony, can we defer this till we get some more info? Mr. Lott, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask for deferral on this
Okay.
one until we get some more information.
Sounds great.
We all sound a little bit confused.
No problem. I'll be glad
And
to
I'd
meet
like
with
to get
y'all
some more
next 2
information,
weeks.
everybody, and we gotta get this cleared up, okay?
That'll work. I'll do it with y'all next 2 weeks.
Thank you, sir. So 6 M will be deferred at this time. 6 NN will be deferred at this time. 6 PP, Mr. Turner, we defer at this time. Tower.
I'm gonna withdraw it.
6 PP withdrawn.
And Mr. Chairman, let me offer it for a discussion, because I need to give an explanation, and then I'll be
The
withdrawing.
resolution approving the request for conditional use for Point Celeste River Properties LLC to construct a monopole communication tower in a floodplain zoning district located 21824 Highway 23, Port Sulphur, all in accordance with application number ZCU-201-102 dated November 14, 2012. Mr. Turner, you're offering?
I'm offering.
I'm a second. Go ahead, Mr. Turner.
And the reason I'm gonna be withdrawing it, and the reason I owe an explanation is because it came from the zoning board, and if I remember correctly, it came from the zoning board recommending that we deny it. And I believe the applicant had worked some issues out with some of the constituents, but the bottom line, I was left a phone message asking me to withdraw it, and I believe that was also communicated to Mr. Edgecombe, and then somehow the legislation, you know, we're still dealing with it. And Mr. Palazzo was thinking that the company wanted to move forward, but I just want to be able to give that explanation. I am withdrawing it because a message was left asking me to withdraw it from the company rep. So that's the deal on that. With that, I'm withdrawing.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. 6 PP is now withdrawn. 6 QQ, Mr. Turner, we're gonna defer at this time? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. 6 RR, Mr. Edgecombe, defer. Six SS withdrawn. Thank you, sir. 6 TT. 6 TT will be deferred. 6 VV, Ms. Cooper. Okay. An ordinance to officially name the access lane located at 40019 Highway 23, Boothville, to Juno Lane, authorizing the installation of street signs and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ms. Cooper, are you offering?
I'll offer as read.
And I'll second. Go ahead, Ms. Cooper.
I'll offer as read. He wants to change the name of his lane to Juno Lane.
No opposition or complaints from anyone, Ms. Cooper? Okay. Any other comment or question? Machine is open on 6 VV. Change your mind on Lapine Drive. And it passes 9-0. Ms. Cooper, 6 YY.
Well, that was the same as you will withdraw that.
So we've withdrawn 6 YY, which is drawn. Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Ms. Cooper, 6 AAA. We did that already. Y'all bear with me, please. Okay,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can we go back to introduction?
yes, sir, we have, I don't believe we've gone to introductions at
Oh,
all
okay.
yet, sir.
I thought I got lost.
That's okay, I'm a little lost too. Okay, let's go ahead and go to item 5, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Griffin?
I have
Where's
one.
mine at?
A resolution requesting that victim of the BPR spill be exempt from taxes for any funds received by the commercial fishing industry from the BP settlement process of future litigation, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Is that all, Mr. Griffin? Thank you, sir. Mr. Hinckley?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the parish president, William Billy Nungesser, to prepare and issue a request for proposals to be advertised within 30 days of the adoption of this ordinance for professional engineering and architectural services to plan, design, build, and renovate as needed the buildings and/or new buildings in the Plaquemines Parish Government Complex located at 333 F. Edward A. Bear Boulevard, Belle Chase, Louisiana, in the specific area of the buildings labeled as number 200, 201, 202, and 203, formerly the medical complex of the Metropolitan State School, to be used for the district court judges and courts, clerk of court, district attorney, assessor, parish council, registrar of voters, public defender's office, justice of the peace, and any other governmental offices so designated by this governmental body. An ordinance authorizing and directing the parish president, William Billy Nungesser, to prepare and issue a request for proposals to be advertised within 30 days of the adoption of this ordinance for professional engineering, architectural services to plan, design, and coordinate the site, land, use, and building requirements of the Plaquemines Parish Government Complex located at 333 F. Edward A. Bear Boulevard, Belle Chase, Louisiana. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hinckley. Ms. Lapine?
I have one. An ordinance creating a policy wherein the chief building officer or deputy building officer and the superintendent of planning and zoning shall attend all parish council meetings and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Dr. Gouy? Thank you, Mr. Hinckley.
Resolution
Mr. Lapine,
expressing
I'm
and
sorry.
confirming the Plaquemines Parish Council's intent to direct and utilize those funds received by Plaquemines Parish and its government as a result of the Macondo well blowout and oil spill on April 20th, 2010 for coastal restoration and related projects. Resolution requesting that the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development place no U-turn signs on State Highway 23 at its intersection with Magnolia Drive in Belle Chase, Louisiana, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Is that all, Dr. Gouy? Thank you, sir. I have a resolution authorizing William Nungesser on behalf of the Plaquemines Parish Government to name and accept the proposal of the Plaquemines Parish Gazette as official journal for the Plaquemines Parish Council and all other political subdivisions and districts situated therein of which the council is the governing authority. An ordinance to amend the Public Health and General Funds 2013 operating expenditure budget, Health and Legal Services Departments, various line items, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. A resolution approving and authorizing Byron Marinovich Council Chairperson, William Nungesser Parish President, and Lori L. Myers, Finance Manager, to execute a Louisiana compliance questionnaire to Calder Champagne Slavin and Company LLP, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the general fund, operating expenditure budget, buildings, Bureau's Community Center Department, line item professional services, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. A resolution establishing members of the Plaquemines Parish Tourist Commission Board, appointing initial members of the board, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. An ordinance approving no, I'm sorry. Mr. Edgecombe. These will be for Mr. Edgecombe. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the Empire Shipyard Complex project and otherwise to provide respect thereto. An ordinance establishing rules, regulations, definitions, and procedures relative to the Plaquemines Parish Coastal Zone Management Program. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the Overlay Empire Boat Harbor project and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Mr. Bieras?
I have two, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the Drainage Jesuit Bend project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And an ordinance authorizing and directing the parish president to prepare a request for qualifications for professional services to assist in the planning, engineering, oversight, and other related services in support of Plaquemines Parish's claims for compensation related to the April 20th, 2010 BP Corporation Maconda well blowout and oil spill, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Mr. Beers. Mr. Turner?
I have one. An ordinance to amend the General Fund 2013 operating expenditure budget, Buildings, Port South Civic Center Department, line item, professional services, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Edgecombe, we did yours for you. Ms. Cooper? Thank you, Ms. Cooper. At this time, I'm going to move to item 8, approval of January 10th, 2013 council meeting minutes. Offer and ask for a second. Any
Second.
comment? You want a second too, Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, I second.
Third.
Then I have something to say before you dismiss me.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, Reverend Evans, would you come to the podium, please? I just want to address this right quick, then I'll tell you about a conversation I had with Congresswoman Maxine Waters and a member of FEMA staff and a member of Congressman Richmond staff this evening around 12:15. Reverend Evans, in reference to YMCA summer program.
Oh, thank you, Councilman Griffith. The YMCA will start our summer enrichment camp as part of the YMCA Plaquemines Parish partnership at the Beers YMCA, the Post South, and the event. We met with Councilman Griffin yesterday because we have a lot of people in our community who are low income, multifamily, who have a problem with meeting the income requirement to attend our summer camp. He's helping us in our area in terms of raising some funds, so we're asking all other councilmen for the help. I want to thank Councilman Keith Hinckley, who made some donations to all our walk and run we had last week, and that raised some money for all the programs. So I want to thank you. So this is just a plea to all council members, especially those in Beers and Post Alpha, that you can help us raise some money so we can help get some kids. If you know some business who can donate some money, because we want to afford families. We have 5 and 6 children. Even though our price is $75 a week, we're doing an 80% discount, which means it come out to $23 a week for family income under $20,000. But we still have a lot of people who want fixed income. We have parish employees who qualify for food stamps, so that tell you some of these challenges we're having. So we just hope that you all will join us with that and support our summer camp so we can provide cultural enrichment for those families who have multiple children. Thank you, Councilman, for all your effort.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Edwards. And just to echo yesterday when I met with them, and we shared some thoughts, especially as it relates to the low-income family with these high family participation, because YMCA, their cost per child is just outrageous. And as we look at the geographic structure of this parish, from Mobile to Venice and from the whole East Bank, where we had 3 and 4 kids in one household, if we don't do something as council members of this parish to go out and help generate some money to offset this cost, then the whole shebang about the purpose of YMCA, as it enhance the quality of life for our young people, would be in vain. So I'm asking you guys and ladies, to join the board, and let's do our part and go out and seek some assistance from these different companies throughout this parish and kind of offset that cost that these families going to experience that they really can't afford.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mr. Turner?
Just a quick comment on that. When we first started the legacy program and using for the YMCA's, our contribution was, we ended up paying $300,000, where in the beginning they were going to be giving us money, right? So we ended up paying them $300,000, and that was including manning the facility in Boothville, which is not operable. And so the YMCA probably needs to come to the table with some support. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Well, she sent me a budget, that I haven't looked at yet, but I will be looking at sometime next week and get a more visible cost of what it costs for the program. But as I shared with her yesterday, the YMCA is not about making money. It shouldn't be about making money. It's supposed to be taking care of the enhancement quality of life of our people, whether you're making $50,000 or you're making $20,000 a year. It all should be the same purpose. This is about our children, and we as the political leaders should be concerned about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Griffin.
I have one more thing, and then I'm gonna shut up. I just want to share. I want to share this with you all for your own information. Today around 12:15, I received a conference call from Congresswoman Maxine Waters And on that conference call, they had a representative from FEMA and a representative from Congressman Cedric Richmond office. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but I'm just going to share this with you. Congressman Richmond is going to offer a bill before the legislature today, and that bill is going to address 5 or 6 things that pertain especially to the people here in Plaquemines Parish. That bill will consist of that, looking at the grandfather clause prior to Isaac, putting that into effect. They're going to look at the 50-year, 100-year comparison levy as pertains to geographical area, and ask FEMA to go back and do a survey and analysis on how that 50-year, 100-year levy protection map. I was also going to ask that the Congress halt FEMA map change and take a look at this thing for the next 2 to 5 years before they let that map change go into effect or till we even act upon it. It's also going to ask the insurance costs, putting a halt to that insurance rate, so that thing will not go into effect for the next 3 to 5 years. And at the end of the conversation, we talked about levy protection, and I've asked Congress Richmond office and Ms. Maxine Waters that at the final analysis, if they can include in their bill, where they looked at our non-federal levies in this parish, and ask Congress, once our levies are completed, would Congress approve that our levies go into the federal system? That way allowing us to be the benefactor of any federal money come down for not just our federal levies, but even the non-federal levies that will eventually become federal levies. So pay attention to what's going on tomorrow, because it's going before Congress today, and hopefully all this going to prepare. It will be beneficial to the residents in Plaquemines Parish and to the coastal Regency once this thing is done.
Thank you for the good news, Mr. Griffin. I'll piggyback on that. Mr. Richmond was quite helpful when we went to D.C., and that's one of the things that we were really concerned about, was not just considering 100-year levee protection, but also the topographical things. We have smaller levees, coastal restoration projects. Councilman Gray and Palmer from Orleans were concerned with, for instance, with the large pumping capacity they have, and none of these things to be considered. So he was very, very helpful, and Ms. Waters actually had some of her staff came in. We were fortunate enough to kind of Google them in the meantime, do a little spying on them. Found her husband played for Southern, and also that one of the girls, I started talking to her and asked her where she's from. She said California. I said, try again. She said Marrero. I said, well, you know our problems. So they were actually quite receptive to what we had to say, and I think we have some help in that area, and we appreciate your assistance in that also. Ms. Cooper?
I would just like to thank you and Anthony and Mr. Griffin and Mr. Bubrick and all of y'all that went to Washington. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. And that went to Washington and brought it to the attention of our representatives of what was going on, because without you and our other coastal representatives, they wouldn't have had a clue. And as far as the people of Plaquemines Parish, I think I can thank y'all for them.
Ms. Cooper, just to tag on to that, when we went up in February, quite a few of us, they really didn't even know what we were talking about, at least acted like they didn't know what we were talking about. And we walked in with 14 parishes worth of officials of varying degrees of importance, and I think everybody there was equally important. They were quite more receptive, especially this being an election year. They kind of give us kind of a pattern ahead in lip service, and we explained to them we go back in and tell the people that what we were going to do is we got lip service, and we actually started seeing some action. I actually felt that I had never met the man really before, but Cedric Richmond was actually the most helpful out the bunch. So right now, we're trying to build a coalition with other states and all. We went up there a week and a half or so ago, and we had 14 parishes, Mr. Beers, that's correct?
Yes, sir.
And right now, that coalition's been built to at least 20 parishes in the state, and we're looking to partner up with California, New York, New Jersey, and some of the other more populated states to show a concerted effort, and it's not just 20,000 people in Plaquemines Parish, but millions of people around the country.
Thank you.
And she also, say this right quick, Mr. Turner, at the end of the conversation, she did tell me that she, along with Congressman Emmanuel Cleavers, who was a representative from, I think, Missouri, along with Congressman Richmond, is trying to clear their calendar so they can make a personal visit here to Plaquemines Parish to see for themselves. And I asked her, come and talk to the people. I didn't want to be sarcastic, but I told her, the thing is, you're all sitting on a hill and you don't know what's going on in the valley. So she said that they're going to come and make the trip, so we're looking forward to that, hopefully in a short period of time.
Mr. Griffin, what was your comment? You listed, I believe, 5 things, and one of them you said, right after halt the map change, What was after that? Something about the insurance cost. Was
Okay,
it halt, did you say halt the insurance cost also?
Right, they're gonna halt the whole process that we've been fighting with, trying to get some answers on.
Right.
There's gonna be the map change, the insurance cost from FEMA, and, taking a better look at our levy.
I'm with
Because
you.
some of this stuff was not included in FEMA proposal. They did not take the levy that was on the construction in consideration. So now, this bill is gonna say that they have to take any levy that's on the construction in consideration before they come back with the
And also the levies
what's
that we do
reasonable.
have that aren't in the federal system.
Right.
And the last comment I have is, Mr. Griffin, I want to personally thank you for for taking the initiative, your interaction with them, and the relationship that you've been able to establish with those congressional representatives. And that's what started this whole conversation right here, was with them responding to you. And so appreciate what you've done, appreciate what you're doing there, and a lot of kudos. That's all I have.
Thank you, and you know, we as a whole can make a difference. The more unified we are in what we do, the more beneficial stuff we can see at the end of the tunnel.
Okay. And with that, the machine is open on item 8.
That's me, but I appreciate it. Thanks, no fee yourself. When you vote the right way.
Vote early, vote often. And the minutes are passed 8-0. The last two things I see on the agenda, Mr. Turner, is an update for Isaac.
Defer.
Defer. And how about your update presentation?
I'll defer.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion at this time. I'm sorry, we have our executive session. Okay. Executive session, I'm going to read off right now. Dave Ankar et al. Versus Plaquemines Parish Government, 2015 ADC number 38-058, Division B. Item 2, Moretco Incorporated versus Plaquemines Parish Council et al. Louisiana Supreme Court case number 2013-C-724. Number 3, Wade A. Boudreaux versus PPG et al. 2015 ADC number 47-789, Division B. And number 4, Industrial Pipe versus Plaquemines Parish Council et al. 2015 ADC number 59-189. Offer and ask for a second for executive session. Okay, we'll go in executive session at 2 minutes to 4. We'll try to be as brief as possible, ladies and gentlemen. Coming out of executive session at 8 minutes after 4. What? What time is it? 4:30, I'm sorry, y'all. I haven't taken no final and binding action, and I'm seeing no further business before this council. I'd entertain a motion. Mr. Hinckley made a motion to adjourn. Second by Mr. Lapine. No comment or question. The machine is open. This is mine or yours? Power and peace. And we are adjourned at 4:30.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. I'd like to call that meeting to order at 4:30. Machine is open for roll call. Let the record reflect that all council members are present. I'd like to move to item 7A, presentation regarding proposed LNG liquefaction facility by Mr. Sherman Bryant, Cambridge Energy. I had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Bryant several weeks ago. A very exciting project going to occur here in Plaquemines. Mr. Bryant, I appreciate your patience and your indulgence for putting up with us. But you now have the floor, and the presentation is yours.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the committee and the council and the people of this parish for working with Cambridge, specifically the Port Harbor District, who has worked with Cambridge since, I believe, last August of last year, last August. Cambridge's energy has been in the energy business since about 2007. We've been a leader in the LNG space, not only working with Department of Energy, MARID, and the Coast Guard in shaping how the U.S. will actually move forward in taking LNG forward, particularly from a deep water port. When Cambridge was looking at identifying particular spots to look at the opportunity to move in LNG, we actually looked at this starting 2007, and then in 2009 when things got pretty intense with the global energy markets. In last August, Cambridge looked at the opportunity when we identified that there was no legislative oversight by the U.S. government and when it came to exporting LNG from a deep water port. So we immediately looked at a couple of potential areas that we believed we could work with to come up with a sustainable economic opportunity, not only for Cambridge, but for the community as a whole. My experience dates back to me being in the United States Army, 101st Airborne Division, going around the world globally, getting into the energy business, and going out globally and looking at how large corporations deploy big LNG projects. And one of the things that I always promised myself is that once our opportunity came, we would look at drawing a real close link between the community, because an LNG project that doesn't have an economic tie to it is not a successful project. In other words, you got to create more than 50 jobs, putting up a big facility, and just looking at turning the volume. But more so, what can you do in the community? So this project, CEF LNG project here in Plaquemines Parish, is about Cambridge Energy and our subsidiary CEF LNG working with the community to see how we can actually put our project together and we can help provide some sustainable efforts to the community. Many of you may not know what LNG is, but it stands for liquefied natural gas. It's been transported around the world for a long time. What it is that natural gas that goes into the pipeline, you take it and you freeze it. You get it to about 206 degrees below zero, and you turn it into a liquid. And you transport that liquid to higher markets. Now, I want to give you a little education to let you understand what the value is in the U.S. gas markets. So you not only can understand a little bit about what Cambridge is doing, but how we intend to help the community. If you look, if you look at the presentation, there's a big red box there that looks at where the big LNG push is, and that's in the Asian markets. What the big issue with LNG and natural gas in the U.S. is basically it looks at the price spread between the price of U.S. natural gas, what you can get it for on the pipeline, what you convert it for into a liquid, and how you can transport that to an international market with a huge spread, okay? So being a leader in this space, we looked at and identified several major markets, and we identified that we actually could penetrate. Cambridge being a small business, not a big large player, we have to look at very different niches that we could look at and sustain against some of the larger players, and we've been successful at that, okay? What our goal is, and the CEF LNG project's goal is to deliver LNG production and delivery assets here in this area that will allow us to not only create jobs, but generate long-term sustainable revenue. And it includes 3 or 4 major components to the project. The first is the gas assets. Cambridge goal in our gas asset strategy is we're acquiring some assets ourselves, but we'll actually buy a large number of that gas that goes to our liquefaction facility from the pipeline. That's important because that's the first component of what we need to do here in the Plaquemines Parish area, which is, extend a pipeline to our facility. The second component is put up a facility that can be sustainable here, because we know that hurricanes do come through this area. So our efforts would be to have a floating vessel that we can disconnect within 24 hours and move that vessel out of harm's way, and then reconnect it to the pipeline after the storm has passed, and still come back and generate that volume of gas that we need to and move forward. The last component is having the ability to own assets to deliver our own LNG to some assets. Our project looks at what we call 8 million metric tons of LNG. Now, I threw out a number. That's a whole lot of gas, okay? I'll tell you, I'm not going to get it, but it's a whole lot of gas. But what that allows us to do is to structure 2 vessels into an area where we can allow one what we call an FOB asset, where we have individuals or our main company or customer coming up to that vessel. And the second vessel, CE owns and controls all the shipping assets, which allows us to create more jobs. Now, I can tell you right now, in the United States of America, right now, as of today, there is no LNG project, other than a couple of other larger projects that do have LNG carriers, but many of them don't have a lot of U.S. personnel on them. Our goal is to change that, okay? We intend to have U.S. personnel operating on our vessels and on our overall carriers. A little bit about the company. We started the company in 2007. Our parent company is a Bermuda-based company. It's a listed company. The ownership of that company, I own about 60% of the company, and 99.9% of this company are owned by Americans, and 99.9% of this company are owned by African Americans, okay? And I'll tell you that is pretty important for that, okay? The reason that's important is that as we go through this process with the Department of Energy, I can tell you right now that Cambridge has some uphill challenges, because when we go through the process, we are in a position right now with our volume. We're not the largest volume, we're one of the smallest volumes. We should be able to get our volume secured from the Department of Energy. But when we look at our ownership structure right now, we've held that ownership structure there because it gives us some advantage to be able to make sure we're able to deliver an economic development sustainability project in an area that we know needed. Next slide. When we look at the component of the project, when we look at the shipping, the pipeline, we're looking at about a 37-mile pipeline that will run from Port Al-Lahash all the way down just before Venice, cross over on some property, go under the Mississippi, go to Targa. So where our facility is located is at mile marker, between mile marker 11 and a mile marker 13.5 on the Mississippi, okay? So when we look at that, we'll be able to take gas from two different directions, some coming from the Tennessee Gas Pipeline and Sonat, and we'll type into the back end of Targa and the 3 or 4 pipelines there. The reason we do that is to ensure that at any time I can secure about 1 BCF of gas at that pipeline. That's a lot of gas, okay? So we'll be taking a lot of gas at that facility every day, okay? So what does it look like? Where we are in the project, Cambridge currently has its FTA license. In other words, we can take LNG to a lot of free trade countries. The prize in the LNG business is being able to go to the non-free trade countries, okay? That's where the high gas price is. So right now, there are about 9 or 10 other applications that are ahead of us. DOA just issued one license on Friday. They indicated that they're going to take a measured approach because and I'm pretty sure they're aware that they're not going to be able to go through in a systematic approach and award all the license, okay? And this is Cambridge Energy CEO's philosophy, knowing the gas markets. On Friday, they indicated something about, looking at the price point of gas, and letting the markets help determine, what the overall outcome will be. The market, in my opinion, and from our research, says that the market probably will allow about 8 to 10 BCF to go, okay? We're looking at 1.07 BCF, okay? So on Friday, when DOE issued that second authorization, we came back and we submitted to the Department of Energy our support letter as a CEO in support. We talked about 4 main components. The first thing is that Cambridge has not only just reached out to Plaquemines Parish, but we've also reached out at the request of the Louisiana Economic Development Authority and Greater New Orleans to try to work with the guys at Avondale, because there's nobody else in the United States that's looking at putting something on a ship that floats other than Cambridge. So in a sense, if you look at it, we not only have this community resting on our laurels, but we also believe we've got the whole U.S. shipping industry resting on our laurels. Because if those guys don't move now and get into this business, they're going to be shut out, and a lot of other global players are going to dominate that space for a long time. And those shipping guys won't have an opportunity to come back. The second thing that we've looked at is we've been approached by a lot of small businesses, not only here in this area, but all over, looking for an opportunity to actually work and participate in the project. So we've made an appeal to the U.S. Department of Energy that they need to really consider where we are and what we're doing with our application and the area that we're in. The third thing that we did is, we've also stressed to them that we're looking at the marine employment organizations such as MBEA, which is the Marine Engineering Benefits Association, which is the division of the AFL-CIO, has reached out to Cambridge because they want to have the ability to make sure that U.S. sailors or crew members are on those vessels. The reason that's important is because in my conversations with the president of that organization last Friday in Washington, D.C., I told him what my intent is. My intent is to have a program set up in this community where high school kids can come out and look at an opportunity in the marine engineering, either as an officer or crew member or whatever, and that the training is put in place so that these young kids will have an opportunity to actually go and start a career, one that we know there are not a whole lot of U.S. opportunities for right now. So we've also reached out to the AFL-CIO, and we told them, if you're going to work with Cambridge, we've got to have that program in place. And we've told them two things. Number one is you can't strike, and number two, I won't hold you out. So basically, that's what we've communicated. So we're lining up the organizational structure now to be able to deliver a complete solution where we can work with this community to help with a sustainable solution. And the last thing that we've done is we also communicated to the Department of Energy that this local community here that we're trying to affect, we talked to them about how when we came through the community and we looked at it, the impact of Hurricane Katrina, and it has not really fully recovered from that area. We reached out and we told them that the poverty rate based on the census rate here is 18%. The U.S. national poverty rate is 15%. That's about almost 20% higher. I need my facility to be here, and we need to get that approval because our goal is to help provide some type of long-term economic development opportunity here to help alleviate some of the things in the people's lives here. What we're saying is we can't do everything for everyone, but we sure, with our project, we sure should be able to help do some things. We also told them that our model provides a sustainable model that we believe will be able to do some of these things. And based on their reaction with the change, and what you have to understand is there's a lot of uncertainty going on right now in DOE. We've also told them that they need to consider the minority economic impact and diversity when they actually go through and issue those licenses. The reason we indicated that is because we know that we can help this community because our mission is aligned to where you're trying to go. We're listening here at how you are talking about jobs. We're talking about a $3,500 computer, okay? And I know that if you had the industry support here, that some of those things wouldn't even be up for discussion because a good corporate citizen's gonna make sure that the county and the community has what it needs to have if it can provide that for them. And I can guarantee you, I didn't come up, I came up on the rough side of the mountain, and I can guarantee you that Cambridge Energy will be a great corporate citizen here. So we've asked them to make sure that they, before they award any other licenses, that they go through there and do their evaluation when they look at public interest and they look at the impact that we're trying to have in this community. Okay? So, where's Cambridge right now? We're currently in the FERC evaluation process. We've already met all of our compliance reports. In other words, we're on target. On May the 16th, we submitted our resource report 1 and 10, which was our description of the project and our alternatives. So we're within our guidelines for FERC. Currently, on June the 10th, we're due to have our kickoff here, a open house meeting in Burris. I think many of you should have received that. That's where we open, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission will come down and take questions regarding the project and answer any questions or concerns that anyone may and the public may have regarding the project. We have a great...
Go back and reiterate that. Burris Auditorium, Monday, June 10th, and the time?
The time is, I think it's 5 to 8, right?
Yeah.
5 to 8.
Great.
5 to 8.
Yeah.
5 to 8. And we encourage everyone to be there. It's a great experience, but we want to make sure we have the impact of the input of the community. Our team so far, and what we will do as we go through and structure the project, this team right here is pretty much a team that, what we call the FERC Get You Through team. I had to look at teams that could help us get through the FERC process initially. Our lead environmental firm is a firm out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's called GSR. They're very familiar with this process. They know the community. That company gives Cambridge a significant advantage because they know the area, they've done a lot of work here, as opposed to us using another player that isn't familiar with the state. We have Moffitt and Nichols. I think they're familiar with the area as well. And we have Woolboro, which is a big pipeline firm, okay? Our engineer for our vessel right now is Worley Person, and I can tell you that we are in discussions with Avondale and trying to come to terms with how we can actually leverage that company in our overall solution. Again, we're trying to provide the things that a good corporate citizen would do, and also what an economic development program would do. Also, we have the light down at the bottom. That's High Point Energy. High Point acquired the Southern Natural Pipeline that runs from Point Alalahash all the way back down, out towards the Gulf. The reason that is important to Cambridge is because we're leveraging their right-of-way. Okay, so in other words, we won't have to go out and create a new right-of-way. We're going to try to leverage that right-of-way to the maximum extent possible and follow it down as far as we can take it. Okay? All right, next slide. So when we talk about where the project is located, our project is located between mile marker 11 and 13.5 on the Mississippi. Okay, we believe the site where the carriers, the FLNG vessel will be on, it's about 125 acres. We do have exclusion zones in that area that we'll actually address, but basically that's where the site is. So our next slide should show you what we think we'll be doing to that. Okay, next slide. What Cambridge will do is we will go in on that site about 1,300 to 1,500 feet, and we'll cut a marine facility in there, and we'll leverage those vessels in there in a similar style arrangement, okay? We'll take the dredge material and we'll use that for beneficial use and create additional beneficial use material. I think we have been in conversations with one or two individuals here in the parish regarding how we would do that and how we would leverage that. We also have a meeting tomorrow set up with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in New Orleans to address some of that. Okay? So what does our vessel look like, and what does the production look like? Our vessel will look something like this here, very similar. Basically, it'll be a ship. It'll have a liquefaction facility on top of it, and it will be able to move at about 12 to 13 knots an hour, okay? We will have 8 dedicated tugs that we will own, but we will leverage personnel from the parish who want opportunities on those vessels to actually do that. The reason we won't go into any other arrangement, because if I have to move those vessels, I need to have them under our control. Because if a hurricane comes, whatever, the vessels will move on their own, but we'll have those ocean-going tugs that'll be out beside them to protect that asset. So our total number of tug crew we're looking for is probably going to be in the number of about 150 people. That gives us an own capability and an off capability for those vessels. And that's a lot of opportunity there. Okay. Go ahead. This is the pipeline route. If you look at the yellow line, that's what our pipeline route looks like. And again, this is the facility. All right. Now let's talk about what we think we can do here in the community. The first thing is, there are a lot of financial models that go through and they'll give you a number that's maybe 40, 50,000 jobs or whatever when they look at an I-man model and all that. And that's all well and good. And I think it is, but sometimes I believe that can be overstated. Realistically, what we're thinking about is we're going to spend a minimum of $1 billion here, okay? That $1 billion will be spent between the stuff for normal project stuff, the pipeline, and the marine facility. Our vessels, most of those vessels will be made in China, okay? Now, what we'll do with a company like Avondale, they'll be responsible for a whole lot of that. So we haven't included their whatever their funding is in that. But when you look at a total of about a $7 to $8 billion project, there's going to be a lot more opportunity on the vessel side because our assets are 90% vessel. So we know at a minimum, we believe we're going to spend about $1 billion in this community. That will start very heavily between could start as early as December 2014 and go all the way to 2018. What will trigger that will be FERC giving us our permit to move forward on the construction component, okay? What we're doing right now is we're going through the permitting process, so there'll be some financing spent. We are starting to use some of the resources here. For example, I was asked to take a helicopter ride, so instead of me going way down there, we identified someone in the Belle Chase area. We've also identified people that had airport crews that are local people that we can actually use. So we're starting to do what we need to do. So when we look at that, there's going to be indirect supply. Now, I have never built a pipeline underwater, so I can't tell you all the things that these guys are going to need to do, and that's why I'm hiring them. Okay, so, but I can tell you there's construction techniques. They're going to need other support things from the community. So, if it's a Woolboro that do it, what we will do is a part of our construction process will require that they have some type of local content. Okay, so again, I don't know everything they're going to need, but whenever that process comes up, we'll need to have what I call a construction component fair, so businesses in the community can get an understanding of what these guys will be looking for, and then they have an opportunity to go in and get some work. Okay, we're not going to allow a big company to come in. If you look at my partners, I don't have a big, any extraordinary huge companies on helping us do this. Okay, and I've been approached by a lot of big companies that wanted to come in and take it and go with it and say, we'll do it, you move out the way. This project has to generate some economic development. Okay, for me, it's about making it happen at this point in time. Okay, I mean, I've been through a lot to know that this is about making it happen.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt you. I'm appreciating the presentation. I've got to go to a graduation tonight. I want to leave you one of my cards. You'll be doing this in my district. Anything I can do to facilitate or help you, please give me a call.
We certainly will. No, I understand that. Okay. So the first thing we want to talk about is that supply, and how do people here in the community participate. The first thing is, somehow we've got to figure out who does what here in the community, and then how do we liaison them with the contractors. We will have local content in there. Again, I don't know what all these guys will need and what they'll do, but I'm sure the people in this parish has done some of provided some of that support before. So there should be that. The second thing, when you look at a long-term project like this, most of this work will be done in the Venice area. So when you look at people launching, boats and getting out to the site, there's going to be the need for older style things that restaurants or whatever. There has to be things in that area that will be needed to support our base. We will have a temporary office down in Venice, a project office, but so we'll look at those type of community support things that will need to occur. What we believe is, we know that we're going to generate a minimum of between 400 and 450 jobs that will be right here in this county. Okay. 400 and 450, about 220 of those jobs will be on our vessels. Each of 240, each vessel will take about 120 people each. Our shift basis will likely be, we have to maintain a crew on each of them, about 30. These are guys that actually sail the boat. So I have to have a full-time marine captain on each of those vessels, okay? And I've got to have sailing crews on those vessels at all times. So then we'll have what we call the process crew. That'll be about 30 people. But that'll be 30 people, so we'll need about 60 people to work in shifts. We will have sleeping arrangements on that. Then there'll be what we call the hoteling crew. So we'll need people who can come in and do the hoteling stuff, to take that administrative stuff. Both of those vessels will be self-capable vessels for producing many of their things on that vessel. So what we will do is, when we get to that component, we'll look at locally, how can we generate that level of expertise here to go in and actually work on those vessels. Okay? Some of those jobs, when we look at the heavy engineering, will require certain certifications. And some of those jobs may not come from this area. unless we have people that we can actually train to get up to the level where you've got to be certified by the Coast Guard or whoever to be on those vessels, okay? Then we'll have about 50 permanent jobs. So we'll have a temporary office there, but we'll also have an office in New Orleans. The office in New Orleans will be far enough out of harm's way so that if those vessels have to move, we have some bases back there where we've got some type of logistic support that's far enough out of harm's way, okay? And again, our count on the tugs is about 160 people. Again, that's going to be 8 ocean-going tugs. And those tugs will be, I think we've got a manned at about 19 people apiece, because keep in mind, I've got to have full crews on, full crews off, okay? So, so we're trying to make the commitment to do what we need to do. I spoke to you earlier about me speaking with the NBA up in Washington, D.C., and how can we put together a program in the community to help with people who are interested in this type of a project. And they said that they would do that. They have a great facility in Maryland where they will do specialized training, so they would train them. And if we have identified smart kids in high school that want to go to the Merchant Marine Academy or any of those who are talented enough to do that at an early age, we'll be able in a position to send those there and actually guarantee them a job. That's what it's about when you're in a community, not looking at a place where you got a 50-base solution and you're not actually generating any economic support for the community. Crew boat and ferry crews and services. What we will need is, depending on how we structure our shifts in that Venice area, we're going to have to launch some crewing going across that river. We don't intend to own that type of service. So we'll, at some point in time, we'll look at what we need to do and how do we work with the community in that. But those are going to be other services going back and forth and providing some of those services to us to get crews back and forth to those vessels. We'll have our tugs, but we're not going to put them on the tugs and take them over. That's something that tug is set up especially for when LNG carriers come in up the river. Then we'll be able to use those to do that. So let's talk about that. We anticipate an LNG carrier coming in at least every 3 days. We think we'll have about 130 carriers coming in a year. Those LNG carriers they'll come, I guess, in through the Southwest Pass. They'll be met by the Pilots Association up around Pilot Town. At that point in time, we'll get the tugs and all that getting up very through them. Typically, when an LNG carrier comes in, the Coast Guard typically mounts an armed crew. They typically give you an escort in the front and in the back. So we're working right now on what that zone will be. But it's no different than what an LNG carrier does going into Savannah. It's no different when an LNG carrier goes into the city of Boston. In fact, I think the commander of the port of in New Orleans has already issued guidance up as far as New Orleans for the exclusion zones for carriers, which is very, very shallow. In fact, I think it's what, about 100 feet? And that's a very narrow range. So typically, we would look at a much larger range. In other words, we may have something, you can't come within 500 yards in the front, maybe a mile in the front while that carrier is going through. So that's why that facility and the location is very critical to us, okay? Safety is going to be our most important issue and our most important concern. To do that, we also want to make sure that we engage the Port Authority and the community and the parish in making sure that we're able to work with fire crews and fire boats. We know that you have a certain number of vessels, but we know that there'll be larger assets needed for our support. We'll have 2 vessels, so I don't know the number of fire boats you'll need, but you'll need some more assets there. And also, we'll also look at how do we engage either the local law enforcement to provide some type of patrolling there to do that. Now, we're going to be a good corporate citizens. Our financial plans, if we hit our numbers by 2018, 2019, we should be generating anywhere between $5.5 and $6 billion a year. I don't know what your tonnage tariff is, but whatever it is, we'll pay what we need to pay to make sure that the community and the public support that we need, we're not here trying to say we're not looking for any additional special breaks, okay? We want to make sure if we're here, that we've got a thriving community. It does us no good to be here and not have a thriving community, okay? So what support do we need? Well, one, I'm going to leave a copy of the letter we provided to Department of Energy for you. But if you have a congressman, if you want to give him a call, if you want to write us a letter and address it to John Anderson, we'll leave this here. You can either send it to us and we'll forward it on. But we need your support, okay? Now, we believe we're going to get our non-FTA, but we believe additional support can help. So if any additional calls, letters of support that we can get from the parish and from any congressman that you have relationships with, we certainly would love to have that. I'd like to open up the floor for questions now and to answer any questions or concerns that anyone may have with the project. I think we've given you a description of where the pipeline is going, the site, the type of vessels, the type of jobs we intend to create here. And I'd like to answer any questions you may have.
Well, Mr. Brown, I don't have any questions. I'd just like to make a little slight comment. You know, I've been sitting on a post committee, and you probably the first firm that I've had the pleasure of being so sincere and committed to actually make an investment here in Plaquemines Parish. And for that, I said thank you. And what I like about your organization is that not only you committed, but you know, your people are in it. And the thing that you bring to us is training for our people.
That's it.
You know, education, and not only education, but you also bring job opportunity. Because it's so often that these companies come in here and they bring outsiders in here, and our people still left struggling, you know, to make ends meet. And these people walk away with these six-figure salaries and they'll stay here. So what you're doing, you know, I commend you on that, and I just tell you welcome as a taxpayer, the Plaquemines Parish, and welcome as an employer for our people. And I'm so glad you're making an investment on East Bank, the greatest part of the Mississippi River, East Bank of Plaquemines Parish, my district.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I can tell you, Plaquemines Parish has given us an opportunity, and they've given us some, the support that we've gotten from John and the people here. I don't think we would have been as far as we've made it. And even it goes back to where our facility is going to be located. The gentleman that owns that property has helped us. Okay, and I can tell you right now, there are a lot of big players out there that didn't believe Cambridge would be at this point, but because of the people of Plaquemines Parish, the things that you've done have helped us get to this point as far as getting through our FERC initial filings. All the support has been exceptional.
And I'd like to say how excited I am about this, because even though it's in your district, it's in my area.
That's right. That's right.
I've been informed.
And I see that it will bring a lot of growth into, the lower end, and I believe that. But I have a question, is that pipeline from Point LaHash to Venice, y'all are gonna lay that pipeline?
Well, that will be laid by Wilbro. Wilbro is one of the top pipeline companies in the country, and what they're going to do, when we identified this area, and we looked very long and hard, we looked at pipeline routes. John helped us when we were doing our assessment. What I needed was pipeline access, and where could I get a right-of-way where I would not disturb too much, and I needed to put the project in a situation that we could balance the gas load. Okay, in other words, I can take a BCF from two different directions no matter what, okay? So that pipeline, we're gonna follow SONAT, okay? And to the best of our ability, what we'll do is, it'll come down right on the back of, and just so you know, we're on the back of Pivos's property, okay? We'll come in the back of his property, and there's a pipeline that runs down, so we'll do a T across that pipeline, and then we'll go across underneath the Mississippi. These guys do horizontal directional drilling. There's already some right-of-ways through there. Now, so, that says when I cross it, I'm attaching additional right-of-ways, and I think there should have been some letters sent out to people who right-of-ways we may be on, okay? So, and if you get that letter, I guess we'll go through that process at some point in time. But, so we've already went through that, and we're gonna try to leverage those right-of-ways all the way through. That gives us the best chance of success and the least likelihood of disturbance of any type of, other material. Did I answer your question, ma'am? Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? Mr. Turner?
By 2018, what's your estimate as far as amount of funds generating? Was it 5 to 6 million?
No. You're talking a $1 billion company.
I'm saying,
The
Give me that
the project will kick off, we expect to turn first gas around March of 2018, okay?
okay,
So by the end of that year, we should have about 3.6 to 4 billion. When we have to, so within a 12-month year, my first full year, we should be generating about $5 to $6 billion a year.
okay, because I was gonna say, this is a joke if you were talking about millions, so I heard you wrong. So
A
I'm saying-
billion.
Okay,
This is billion.
yeah, okay, that's better.
Yeah. It's about, we'll generate about 5 to 6 billion a year.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we want to thank you, the cooperation between parish government and you, I mean, that's essential for all of this to work. Mr. Pennison is very knowledgeable. He can provide you with the information you need, anyone on this council. We're looking forward to the June meeting, and Mr. Pennison will see to it that our local newspaper takes care of making sure that people know that that meeting's taking place with a brief explanation. I think it's an outstanding opportunity, and we're very excited about it.
And, thank you so much, you've been an extreme help to us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 2. There'll be no executive session. John, are we going to dispense with your report, or are you going to? Yeah, we'll dispense with the status report. That wasn't a directive, John. That was, okay. I wouldn't want to do that, yeah. There was kind of a demand by my cohorts. Number 4, there are no bids and advertisements. Introduction of resolutions and ordinances. Anyone? I do have one, and it's actually, we're going to take off one that's on the table, and this is a correction. An ordinance authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Parish Council as sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to negotiate and enter in a purchase agreement for the acquisition of land owned by CLL Limited Partnership Limited. An ordinance authorizing and directing the Port Chairman, Dr. Stuart Gouy, to enter into and execute a contract with the Chesapeake Group LLC lobbyists beginning July 1, 2013 through July 30th, 2014 to represent the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District in any upcoming sessions of the Louisiana State Legislature to protect its interests in all matters and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. We'll move to item 6. Item 6A will be withdrawn. Item 7A has taken place. Item 8 is approval of the January 10th, 2013 Port meeting minutes. Mr. Hinckley moves, and I'll second that we approve those minutes. The machine is open.
If you could just sign that, please, when you're done.
And the minutes have been approved 7-0. Any other business today? Anyone? I entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Hinckley moves.
I second.
Mr. Griffin seconds. The machine is open. And the port meeting is adjourned. What is that, buddy? 5:11? At 5:11 by 6-0 vote. Thank you.